Yeah, that's insane.
Thanks for sharing.
This is to confirm that we have received your shipping request. Yay! I don't know what.
Yeah, that's right. That's part 2. Woohoo! Interesting. We start with a, oh, this is going to be a good class. We're starting with an embarrassment to the Supreme Court. I don't do that too often. Oh, copyright. But your decision has nothing to do with the existing. Okay. Says you. Is it that time already? We have 2 minutes. Yes, we do. Signed up. I'm telling you, a classic, the world's shortest signature list. We will start in 5 minutes.
I don't understand like 90% of this. It's like, do something. I don't want it. That's just.
Yeah, exactly. No, a good portion of it was like, when is something irreparable, when something not irreparable. I didn't understand any of like the state cases, like making the state do stuff.
Well, the first ones were the first 3 were hard.
Yeah.
So you're not liable, but we're still gonna make you do something because you were a member of the tribe, I guess.
What?
Well, one of them, right? It was like
Tribes?
No, a trial. I remember the trial.
Oh.
Where they were being sued. They found they weren't liable, but they still had to comply with whatever they said because they were part of the trial thing.
Oh, that was the second one saying that, like, I think the state had to pay something. I don't know.
You mean
That was a school.
the Hills case?
Yeah.
Right, that was confusing. It looks like what they.
Nobody called in.
What?
One person called in about the bar today.
Who's the person that called in?
No one did.
Oh, no one called in.
No one called. Here, I talked to Katrina.
We're waiting for Were we waiting for a call?
Well, sometimes they call in and they tell us what the questions are, or sometimes they call in and say, yeah, hey, it was good, it was bad, it was good.
Oh, the tester.
The bar was today.
Oh, okay, that's what it was.
Yeah, today was the February bar.
Oh.
So, yeah, we're hoping, I always hope people call in. Now, they don't always, it's not a good sign or a bad sign, to be honest with you. That's kind of a misconception.
They
Now,
said-
the day when the results come out and nobody calls in, that's that day. Okay, that's like duck your head that day.
So they
No
have to
one
wait
gets
till
the
November
thing.
still? It's earlier for them, right? It's not till November? Or when do they get their results?
4 months about.
Yeah.
So, and then they get to take it in another 2, so let's see. Yeah, sometime near the end of, July, somewhere near about April, May. It's near the end of May, because then you get another 2 months to kind of gear up for the next one.
When we took the baby bar, the only reason why our phones were lighting up was because of that last essay.
Oh, well, that was a little different for you guys.
It was only a bad thing. It was like,
Everything was like, yeah! Everything just went kablooey that day. You know, we were getting calls, so it's kind of funny because even, what's his name called here? Fleming called here, and he's like, what's going on? We're like, we were hoping you knew. It was just all the boards lit up. That's true. This is so. I'm getting an argument from me. But yeah, usually whether they call it or not, it's not much of an issue, really. Very minor. But the day that it actually, the results come out, if you hear nothing by Monday, I was like, oh man, this is gonna be a mess.
It was today like the second day, or is it the
That was
first day? Oh, so they're probably not gonna call anybody until.
You never know. You never know. But a lot of people, you know, they'll just, well, you know, because I want to know what the questions are. So it's not super unusual for someone to contact me after the first day. So I was hoping to get more information. But not happening at the moment. I also wanted to know about the PT, of course, see what that was all about this time.
Or did they give the PT the first day? Oh yeah, because the second day is multi.
Yeah, tomorrow's all multis, so it's been there and done. Yeah, they're done now. They're always done by 5:30, so at latest.
So it's 4 essays in the morning and then 3 in a PT in the afternoon?
No, it's 3 in the morning and then 2 essays and 1 PT in the afternoon. 6 total.
So there's only 6 total?
Okay.
Yeah, that's all.
6 and PT?
No,
No,
6
it's
including the PT.
including the PT. Yeah. So the first day is a half an hour longer than the second day.
Yeah, I thought there was like, I thought we wrote like 9 essays or something like that. I didn't realize there was only 5 in a PT.
Yeah, I thought it was.
Yeah, that's it. There's just 6 now. 6.
So what's in the afternoon? Just 1 essay and the PT?
3 in the morning, 2 in the afternoon, plus the PT. So the
So
morning.
the afternoon's longer than the morning?
Yeah, the morning is
That's
3
goofy.
hours, the afternoon is 2
Yeah,
and a half.
I don't like that.
Well, I mean, it was 4 hours in the morning for the baby bar.
Yeah, but that was longer than the afternoon.
Was it? Did we only get 3 hours for multis?
I think so.
Oh.
3 hours and
I was always done within like an hour.
what's this?
Take 15 minutes today, that one. This is kind of a little bit of a longer one. Let's see what you get. This is kind of a neat one. I'm testing your knowledge of what we've learned so far in this class. This is an interesting one. Or so I think. There's one.
feel so weak on the remedies portion of it. It's like, list all the crazy torts and contract issues, like huge lines, right? And then remedies.
Okay, we'll work on that. Just remember, so what do I get for all this? We're gonna work on. Gotta know that answer, right? But just so you know, Michael's home left this bug today.
Oh, really?
They folded. Okay, well, let's see. All right. So you want to, let's go over this one. This is kind of an interesting question, actually. So, what interesting issues?
Reparations.
The good part is that if you in fact used something.
That was it. Sorry, I asked him, somebody posted, and he was going through the options, and I couldn't remember what was, never mind. Way off topic.
One of the reasons I like this question is because if you use, and again, you don't have to use my model, you can just use any pretty much standard model. And if you do that and you sort of use that click the box method, in other words, I'm just going to start with the idea that it's going to be damages, expectation, consequential, incidental, da, 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 da. And then I'm going to have a section for equitable remedies. And I think we talked about rescission, reformation, restitution, and quantum merit. Maybe throw in a little quasi contract just to look like, I had so much time on my hands, so I thought I'd throw it in, that kind of thing. And then at the end, you have to know your equitable liens and your constructive trusts. We talked about all that, right? And I wasn't part much of this essay, but also, again, you also have something quite can for, injunctions, TROs, shorter from that, what do they call it, temporary and permanent. Yeah, and then
So I don't have rule sentence for any of that. That's
yeah,
scary.
so this is what you have to have those out there. I just gave you the hit list. And again, you can use it any order you can do it. That's the way I do it. But if you do that, the thing is you're going to be able to answer, right? A lot of it. You just are. You just force yourself into it. There's nothing else you can do. And, that's not true. You could skip a lot of boxes if you want, but you probably won't. That's the whole thing. Plus also, you won't forget certain things. You see why that's important? Very easy to forget things. And sometimes, big issues are the ones you just forget. But if you have an outline like that, if you just write, the heading, believe it or not, your hands will start to move. They just will. You're just way better off just knowing that I'm going to go through this, and you're going to hedge your bets. Now, whether you write it all down on paper or not, that's your prerogative, but you should be able to. You see what I'm saying? Like, in other words, oh my God, what if they threw everything under the sun? That's what you would write. It's just a better way to go about it. Otherwise, you're sort of looking and you're kind of picking and choosing. And the biggest problem with that, and there's several problems with that, but the biggest problem with that is that what happens is when you pick and choose is you tend to leave things out in the interest of time. Now, I don't want you to do that. I want you to learn to write it down. You see? That way, if you write it down and it's not there, it's not there. Yeah, you lose a little time, but we took care of that. You see what I'm saying? We took care of that. We said, maybe you will, maybe you won't. I don't know, right? And again, as you get more sophisticated, closer to the bar, there will be some issues you will leave out. Okay, you'll just say, well, this really is outside of the scope, right? It's just really not here. So I'm not going to write it down as if, anything. And again, the line in the sand always has to be, don't use the word if whenever you're doing this type of a method. Because if you start using the word if, then I can write all that. Well, if there was this element too, then, or if this was a real trial, then, or if, and then you can go on forever. But as long as you get that relationship going with the facts, right? The fact, if this, then this, if this, then this, if this, then this. Remedies are actually pretty easy. You do have to have them canned, but with the rules, but that's the last thing you can do,
Bless you.
hey, unless you have any stretch of the imagination, that's, well, you gotta know some next week.
I was about to say, midterms are only like.
For the midterms, you're gonna have to know a few, yes, but I'm just saying, but as far as knowing them in a far away, it's like, that's different. Bless you.
Sorry. I just yeah.
Wouldn't worry about it. Really. So anyway, and as far as I don't know this requirement, that's fine. Neither did I when I was, in your position, so don't worry about that. And so that's what we're kind of looking at. And I think that this is actually kind of a really good question for that because, alas, another heartbreaker. Students routinely skipped over most of the major issues in this one. Very sad, but that's what they did, okay? And so a lot of students was another one that I got a lot of just, it ended in tears, what can I tell you? And you can't, the bar knows this. Watch out, they've been asking remedies like crazy the last couple of years. They've been really a lot more remedies they want because, for so long students just kept blowing these questions out of the water. And so they finally said, oh good, here's something we can torture them more. So, again, we don't want to leave, one of the things that we don't want to do, and we'll discuss this more as we get closer to part 2, is you never, one of the secrets to test taking, generally speaking, but particularly on the bar, is you just never want to blow yourself out of the water. Missing big issues, see, even if you don't talk about points and things of that nature, you're blowing yourself out of the water because it's so easy to see. You see what I'm saying? You're taking a test and you're doing numbers. Oh, you get the wrong answer. Well, nobody really knows why. You got this big, long algebraic formula that goes through geometry and the whole thing. Then ends up in calculus. I'm sure your professor can go back and find it, but they'd actually have to find it, right? And the bar, some mistakes are obvious, some are not. And so what you want to do is you want to avoid the obvious mistakes, right? You don't want to give them, they look at your paper and they see 2.5 pages. Okay, they look at your paper and they see you didn't finish. They see that you missed, it wasn't quite at night, it was dusk for burglary and it was modern anyways. You might not catch that. You can see what I'm saying? Some are just not so obvious. You laid out the rule and you said, it sounds like dusk to me. Move on. You really don't know. These are unobvious mistakes, right? And we just want to hit everything. It's like, remember how we learned, you can take this, really, some of the stuff you can take to the bank. Remember how we learned to do PTs was, I don't care if it's a case name, put it in somewhere. Even if you don't think it's the most important case under the sun, you're not the grader, right? So don't guess what they think is important and what is not. Again, with that said, there are going to be some cases that are going to be more important than others, okay? And you'll get the feel for that. I don't want you to waste hours writing things that aren't there. That's why you don't use if. See, if you keep close like that, you can't go on. You can't. And you'll see that. You basically handcuff yourself, but in a great way, when you refuse to use the word if. If is a deal killer on the bar. If means to me, by the way, that you're writing about what you want to and not what you see. And so whenever I see if in the paper, I always go, oh God, here we go again. Just write about what you know, not the actual answer is. That's bad. That's an obvious mistake. You see what I'm saying? But we can stay away from that. It's not that hard. It really isn't. And again, you got plenty to write. You guys have learned that from me so far, right? Oh, believe me, whatever the question is, there's plenty to write, particularly if you want to hedge your bets, and we do, right? We don't want to get caught, leaving simple stuff out. Same thing like a PT. It's like, in the case of so-and-so, they mentioned this case too. Gee, I guess it has something to do with that case. Reader will look at it and go, oh, look at that. They caught the case in the case. You laugh. It's true. Absolutely true. Now, it just so happens that the case in the case is really important, you better write something about it if they're looking for it. But a lot of times they're not. And the other thing to think about is if you were going to skip over it and just leave it out entirely, is that a good idea, do you think? idea. It's just a bad way to go about the bar. Just a bad theory of test taking, especially with something that's essay oriented or performance oriented. You want to haul in as much as you can. Again, shortcuts are, worry about, you might need a shortcut here or there, but worry about those way later. Worry about just writing faster. Learn about how to pick things out that matter. Learn to read with a discerning eye, but get the stuff that's important. You see what I'm saying? In a PT, the cases are important. The statutes are important. Some of the facts are important. Stick with the depositions, the things that are people actually saying things, right? It's just common sense. Some of it's just common sense. That's the stuff you want to stick with, right? And again, you don't have to make any great decision. You never have to make a great decision along the bar. Even if you say, it's all these elements, I don't know. Don't do that, because it's just easier to say, I think they're this, and move on. But you're not making great decisions. You're actually just talking about probabilities and possibilities way more than anything it actually is. I don't know. Don't you ever see when remember back in the good old days, and then we'll get on this, but remember back in the good old days when you were doing essays in criminal law? How many times do you actually really see a question on the bar that it says, what is Dan guilty of? They almost never say that. No. What do they always say?
What could he be charged with?
And even worse, what can he reasonably be charged with is the classic. So we've gone from this standard up here, which is actually sort of, you go through the steps and answer the question, right? Down to reasonably charged, which is a what? It's a laundry list. That's why whenever I see, the question, the multi-state, what can so-and-so reasonably be charged with? Is there a dead body? What's the highest murder you have? It's reasonably possible, right? I got one half of there's only two parts to the equation. Rens mea, mea rens, some Latin word. There's an act and a thought, right? Act and intent. Hey, I got a dead body, I got the act. Why wouldn't I pick the highest thing possible if you can reasonably be charged with it? Because we'll figure it out during discovery, right? I don't even think about those anymore. Now, if it says guilty, that's a little different standard. You might think about that because that probably means there's something missing that they know is missing, right? So you can't just check the murder box. But that's how you play the bar, and I do that every time, and I don't even know, and I don't even care because it saves me an enormous amount of time. And I'm almost always right. I'm right 9 times out of 10 if I do that. So again, these are things that you have to sort of, take for rote, right? And you have to have a good plan. You see what I'm saying? It's all about planning. It's all about just taking care of your time. It's all about knowing that I can miss 30 multi-states and I still pass. What kind of idiotic test is this? That's a C-. Who in the hell gets to be a lawyer for a C-? You don't get to be a plumber for a C-. Not that you touch my pipes unless you got an A. I saw my doctor the other day and he said, I think you have a problem with your kidney. And I said, what did you get in kidneys? C. Next. You think I should like a person who got 70 out of 100 on the kidney test? You should be telling me about my kidney? I have 2, thank God. Think about it.
Did they really separate the classes more?
Something like that. But think about it for a little while. What in the name of, what are they thinking? It's crazy. It makes, there must be some logic to it, but think about that for a while. So but your natural response shouldn't be, oh no, what am I going to do? What should your natural response be? I deserve to be a lawyer, so I'm going to play the game. You can all pass, I'm telling you. No doubt in my mind. You've actually done things that are way, way, way harder in your lives. Way harder in your lives, honestly. But this is one of those that's very weird. You don't see much like the bar in real life. You don't get that much. You don't get tests that are basically made to make you stressed. Most tests would be just as happy if you passed the bar. I think they like the idea that they're winnowing you out, weeding you out, separating the chaff from the wheat, or the, separating the chaff from Chambers, Chap, isn't it? Can't remember anymore. I don't know, wait. Chap,
Way from,
wheat from Chap, Chap's the Chap. Yep. Okay, nobody that here lived in Nebraska.
nice.
Yeah, but they would know.
Even people in Nebraska don't live in Nebraska.
That's right. They only say they do look cool. Again, okay, let's take a peek. Okay, so at trial, Angela has established that Mark and Kara are liable to her in tort and contract. Already we're going. Whenever they say something that, guess what the question is? Remedies. Just don't even think about it. Remedies question. Does that mean we're not going to write anything about tort or contract?
Well, that's what I was gonna ask.
Because
This is a toughie to call. That's why I picked this one. You got to go, whoa.
you could spend the whole time
Whoa.
writing about
Yeah.
everything that went wrong here.
Easy. Piece of cake. Yeah, this one is really painful.
And it did.
I would learn.
Really?
Yeah.
You went through like all of the fiduciary duty of a broker and the duty
God,
of
no.
loyalty and the different types of fraud and maybe you could civil conspiracy and then you got to do your breach of contracts and this is a mess, man. This is a fucking mess.
This one's painful. This one you really got to make decisions. I don't believe either answer talks about contract.
They don't? Okay.
Ooh, but learn to write something at least short to address the issue. That would be my advice. I don't think you could do both. I think you're gonna go over time and it's not worth it for this kind of question. But try to write something like, here we have a contract, therefore, it was formed, they performed it, there was a breach. Do something which puts you in the contract world. Tort law, same thing, at least give a short definition, maybe give a rule if there's something you really like, you think it's negligence or something. But give them a little taste of something, because honestly, you never know. It just so happens on this one, as you become more sophisticated, and you will, right? So don't worry about that. You can take heart in this today, you lack sophistication to take the bar still.
I only have 4 more months to gain sophistication, so.
Yeah, it'll take you about 2 months.
Oh, okay.
You'll get it like about 2 months before you'll start to see it. You will, really believe me, because you'll start to get sick of it. When you start to get sick of it, that means you're getting more sophisticated. You don't want to do the road stuff anymore. That's a great sign. It's a really good sign. So we'll pay a little attention to that as we go forward. But you'll, every so often you'll walk up and say, oh my God, do I still have to do 60 board? Yes, good sign. You're starting to get sick of the basics. And that's a good sign. Again,
So, would it be advisable to go through one then the other? For example, they seem to separate out their call for tort and contract. So, for example, under tort is where you're going to find your punies and things like that. Under contract is where you're going to find your expectation of or whatever. And then a lot of this is going to be a third issue, which is also your equitable issues. Like you want your rescission, you want your constructive trust.
okay.
So how do they separate? How do you do that?
Yeah, when in doubt, do tort, legal, equity, contract, legal, equity. When in doubt, just lay it out like that. That's the classic remedies format, so you can't really go wrong. No one's gonna hold that against you.
What was that?
Well, just tort, whatever it is, then do your damages, then do your equity.
Oh,
And
yeah.
Contract, then do damages, then do your equity. That's the classic. If you get a question like this, just lay it out like that. That's fine. Okay, so again, simple structures, when you go into the bar, you're going to have a bunch of simple structures. Again, you can't decide there to do these things. You have to work it out before. If something's bugging you, you've got to have a fallback. What's the fallback? Give me a fallback. You don't have one yet, but you will. Maybe you do. I need another fallback. I need a whole bunch of them. How about line by line? Just drag it across. You have to make quick decisions, and you have to learn to commit to them. You can't change halfway through. You see what I'm saying? So we have to learn to make quick decisions, we have to learn to stick with them, and they have to be what else? Just so we're clear on the concept, they have to be good. Yeah, they have to be some way that makes sense. Don't just know a bunch of stuff, like, that's my structure. But you see, that's what you can do though, it's not hard. And you see how much time you're going to save? Do you know how much time that saves you? To do what I just said, that you're not sitting there and you're not this, you're not that. Again, the best students are if this, then this. If this, then this.
Didn't you just say don't use if, because that means that we're talking about what we want to talk
Don't write
about?
if on your paper.
Oh,
That's what
okay.
I'm saying. Never use the word if to get an issue in, because it means you're making up facts. You can go on forever. So don't do that. Every time I see the word if on a first year paper, I go, no.
I would only
I
use
don't want to read this.
I would only use if, like, where I wanted to fail the contract, that I'm like, but if the court finds that it's a valid contract, then we're gonna go here.
That would be the one time there is absolutely, positively no offer. Who cares? Keep going.
Yeah, exactly. That's the only time I used if.
That I can do. But that's really about it. Every time I see it tends to be bad, particularly in the first year papers. As students get back down the road, you can use it from time to time, don't believe me. But watch your papers though sometimes. If you're losing too much of certain words, that's a bad sign. Every time you use if, what you should do is think to yourself, don't use if. Take out the word if and put the word because in. If you do that, you'll see that you won't write it, because you'll go, that's stupid. Because there's no element, but if there was, I would write it back. Don't do that. You see what I'm saying? All of a sudden it makes no sense. If you ever want to write persuasively, what's the rule? Just think in your head what?
Write persuasively?
If you don't know the difference between writing persuasively or writing with a neutral tone, how do you start? You don't have to write it on your paper. You can even just think it in your head.
You just do facts. You don't do any
Well,
kind
what
of.
do I want you to start with? Remember from our last class? Just think in your head if you want to use a persuasive tone, which sometimes you do, particularly on a PT, just in your head, just say, I will win because. And it forces you to write persuasively as opposed to neutrally. It just does. These are some little tricks and techniques that you go in and you use them. And it takes out the guesswork. Because you can't guess the day of the bar. Because invariably you'll guess wrong. And you'll guess wrong more than you'll guess right. It's just not worth it. And then you'll change your answer and then you're dead. Yeah. A student came to me one time at the school and I said, did you go back and change any of your multi-states? Yeah, I changed 9. You failed. She failed. I didn't even think about it. You don't even think about it, you failed. I'm telling you, because statistics tell us that every time you change 10 answers, you change 9 from the right answer to the wrong answer. She could have used those 9. She would have passed anyway, to be honest. But she could have used a better score. Okay, so again, a lot of it is just getting used to this stuff. But this is what I mean by sophistication in many ways. And sophistication in time, by the way, is what I mean too. Your legal knowledge is not going to grow exponentially. Just,
But the problem that I have with this one is, though, is like, even if you only talk about the remedies.
That's the long paper.
Well, it's not that I don't see the long paper, that's the problem.
It's pretty long.
I wouldn't talk about like a good majority of the remedies that we've talked about because there's just no facts to support them. Like consequential.
Okay.
There's nothing to talk about, so I wouldn't talk about it.
I say the 10 grand is consequential.
Okay.
Isn't the 10 grand incidental
Maybe.
instead of because isn't consequential like
Yeah.
future or lost earnings, like profits?
Yeah, you're right.
Whereas stuff that you expend in reliance of the contract isn't, or stuff that is part and parcel with the contract, like a moving fee, would be an incidental kind of, or it could be a consequential. Oh no, that's not consequential.
No, incidentals are more like because you breached, I had to do things that I wouldn't have done anyways would have had to do anyways. And it's stuff like, you see the lists come back and it's like FedEx charges, things like that. It's like, because of your breach, these are some incidental damages that I would not have had to have suffered had you just done what you said you were going to do. And it tends to be lists that are pretty, I mean, I've seen like, pretty big numbers, and then the incidentals is $150.
So would the moving fee be consequential?
Man, I sent 12 letters via FedEx, man. That's $12 a throw. I want $120. That's your classic incidental damages. Those are your classics.
But so would the 10 grand be consequential?
Well,
'Cause I always-
what is it a consequence of the breach? That's what you have to figure out. Was it
I
a
guess
foreseeable consequence of the breach?
And not really.
no. I
I
mean,
mean,
I just don't know where I would throw it. Would it be under just regular restitutionary damages? Because
That's where you go. Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah. Well, let's see.
because I've always thought of consequential as like lost profits, lost like I guess not moving. I've always thought of it in a business related expense rather than a personal loss.
Oh,
I guess.
consequential.
Yeah.
Well, see, I always think of it as this way. Let's say that you have a contract with someone and the contract fails. Now, it just so happens that you fulfilling another contract was based on that contract. If you told the other person that and you said, if you can't get this to me by the 15th, not only will this contract fail, but that one will.
or if it was just foreseeable, like, I wanna buy a million screws.
Right.
Like, I mean, like, or a million airplane wings. Like, obviously I'm building airplanes. Yeah, you know what I mean? Like, not screws, but like airplane wings would be a good example.
Perfect. Yeah.
They still can't be held liable, can they, unless you specifically tell them that you need them to complete an order within a certain amount of time?
Well,
They
it's
have to
foreseeability,
know.
right?
That's the deal.
No, I think that's part of consequential is you literally have to tell them.
Yeah, I mean, they have to know. Yeah, whatever that means. And sometimes it can be, they know. You don't have to necessarily tell them. They
Like
just-
the lost profits type
something like
thing.
that. Yeah, that's close. Yeah. You know their volume, so you know they can, that kind of thing, yeah. But generally speaking, most of the facts will say they told them. Yeah, so
Uh-huh.
that kind of thing. And incidentals tend to be way low down. You might be interested to know that it's the selected answer A. It goes really pretty interesting, actually. But on the contract level, they don't talk about any expectation, consequential, or incidentals.
Or they
Whereas the
just give
second
them
answer does.
Punitive and restitutionary and go into equitable.
Well, they're a big deal. How many of you said rescission? All right, good job. That's what I want to hear. Most students will skip rescission. That's the big ticket item here. If you didn't talk about rescission, you failed, basically. Good job. All right, we are getting somewhere. Everything else we can work on. All right. Well, let me just give you the hit list. How's that sound? And maybe we'll take a peek and see why. Rescission was the big ticket item on answer A, and I would agree. I think that's the one you really have to get. Otherwise, I cannot see you past them.
You shouldn't want the house.
But just remember, what's the 4 I always tell you to do? Rescission, reformation, restitution, quantum merit. Always consider those. They love to test on those. And students constantly jump over them.
See, I wouldn't say quantum error with either because there's literally no facts to support
There
it.
can't be any in this one, and it's not mentioned.
No,
But again,
yeah.
always think about that. You know, when I say make sure you can do that, I mean just make sure you can write your list down. If you get flustered, just write your list down, take a little box by each one and just check the box. Box, 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 check, check, check. Do it in that order and you can be done with it. You see what I'm saying? Always have a way to do it. That's all I'm suggesting you do. Everything I've told you so far has nothing to do with actual legal knowledge as far as I know. It's all about how you're going to take the test, right?
Yeah.
Or I like to think how you're going to pass the test, right? All right. Number 2 issue on question 1 was they went into the tort. Compensatory damages, not bad. Compensatories are for torts, right? After that, they went into punitive damages. Then they went into restitutionary damages, which I think is appropriate. I think that was a good call. First one's a pretty good paper. And then, this is okay. I want to see free hands. Please, 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 please. Constructive trust, equitable lien, all three of you.
No, but I think constructive trust goes under the contract, right? Not under tort.
Let's see what they say. A may get a constructive remedy on a compensatory. No, that's actually a.
Oh, it has to go under tort, because one falls under Mark too.
Right.
Okay.
But did everyone mention it? Did everyone
Yeah.
think about it?
I hope they're under Mark.
Is that where she gets the full 750?
Well, may get a constructive trust or an equitable lien over the compensatory or restitutionary money damages due to her. And then they explain.
So you can't do a constructive trust for a contract?
If it's fraud,
Well, that's
then you'll tack on.
Well, this is straight up fraud.
Well, that's why, okay, so the way that I split it up is I went after Carol.
It's really a tort, though.
I went after Carol for the contract issues because that's technically who the contract was with. And then I went after Mark for the tort issues because she didn't, I mean, I'm sure she did have a contract with him to buy a house, but they never mentioned any contract between the two of them. So I went after him for the tort remedies, and I went after her for the contract remedies. And I said for her, you could do a constructive trust because there's fraud in the inducement of the contract in saying that.
Her?
Yeah.
But what do you want from her as far as constructive trust?
Why do I want? Because they split the proceeds with Carol, so Carol got $250,000 of the money.
Okay.
So that $250,000 goes into a constructive trust, and then.
No, only his part goes into a constructive trust because his stuff grows.
Okay.
Right.
See, I just thought you.
And I think you do have a contract with this guy, by the way. Just throwing it out there.
Well, where does it say you have a contract with him?
Hired Mark, a real estate broker.
I have
I know
a
it sounds-
contract.
That's a contract.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, real estate broker.
I mean, it's a fiduciary duty. It's a.
contract. In real world.
Well, in real world, yeah, but in bar world, is it?
Let's take a peek at that. It's an interesting question. See, I would say yes, I would cover that, but let's take a peek. Question 2. Okay, again, the question 2 just started with saying in contract, so again, they're laying it out first. Legal remedies, damages, they talked about that. They talked about expectation. Okay. They talked about and then they talked about consequential damages, but they said there weren't any. And then punitive damages, again, weird answer, not available in contract, good. Then they talked about restitution. That's kind of a fallback, that's pretty smart. Equitable remedies or rescission. Again, rescission was the big ticket item. If you didn't do that, you flat out could not pass. There's no way. And then in tort, it went to, again, see, the second one just did the classic. It just went contract, the contract damages equity, tort damages equity. That's
And it passed, even though it didn't divide up.
Yeah, but did they divide it by call? Or did
Oh
they
yeah,
just-
they did that, but it's not right these when you see them. So then they went into, but they're good answers. It's funny because I like both answers. I think they're both kind of cool. Legal remedies with damages. Okay, so this is number 2 again, second. Let's see. Okay. And then again, it says she's not allowed to get punitive damages. Okay. Again, compensatory. Equitable.
Wait, why can't she get punitive?
Well, she said they couldn't. So, actually, in addition, Angela may be able to recover punitives. Oh, so she can't get them from Carol because of Carol's outrageous lies and conduct. You think about that?
Well, I agree. I just think she should also be able to get them against Mark. Yeah. I'm not saying she doesn't get them. I'm saying she gets them from both.
I like it.
But not under contract, just under
This is
the
a
fraud.
fraud.
Right.
Why do it under contract too?
I think you can get punitives
You can't actually get punitives under contract, but you
Even
can
if there's a
get-
fraud in the contract?
That's the underlying tort.
Oh, okay,
That would be
fair enough.
underlying tort.
Oh, so you get the punitives on the underlying tort and not actually the
Not
contract?
Actually, the contract.
Oh, see, I thought you could get punitives in contract if there was a fraud in the contract.
I have been told theoretically that your conduct in the contract could theoretically be so outrageous that maybe by some miracle you could. But generally speaking, don't mess with it on the bar. It actually is better when you say no.
Okay.
No, you cannot get it in contract.
But you can
However,
sue
there's
it.
this underlying, see how sophisticated you look?
Mhm.
That's a little sophisticated technique. Things like that you'll start to pick up on. Equitable remedies were, again, constructive trust, equitable lien. I don't think you could pass without talking about those two.
Equitable lien?
But you always talk about both.
So-
never talk about one. Two are always available. One's just the money value. So they're always available.
Okay,
They're
so,
never not available.
But what's an equitable lien? Like,
It's the same as a constructive trust, but you just want money. You don't want the actual item.
but
That's all
what
it
would you
is.
put the lien on?
on his, I guess on his stocks, you put a lien on his stocks for
Well,
two
on
hundred
stock,
fifty.
Okay.
Yeah,
And then you ask
Yeah.
the constructive trust for the whole 750? Is that what you do?
probably, yeah. I
But-
do that.
No, I'm asking though, on the lien, do you only get the 250? Or on the lien, can you get the whole
750.
banana?
I'm not sure. I think well, I don't know. When we read the question, I'll go over that. And I'll think, well, that's a good one. Let me see what it's for.
Because the rule that I have here for equitable lien is imposed on improperly acquired property to which defendant has title.
Let's see my knowledge.
Property subject to immediate court-directed sale and proceeds go to plaintiff. So I guess whatever they get from the sale. If
Yeah.
proceeds are less than fair market value and defendant took, deficiency judgment will issue. And then it says this is a good remedy if the property has gone down in value.
See, the problem with an equitable lien is that the lien is for what it's hard to get the lien has to be for a specific number. So you can't, there's no such thing as a lien for when you sell it, whatever the amount you sell it for is mine. That's a constructive trust. That means you actually own the item itself. So of course the money's going to come to you minus whatever that person paid. So I want to say you can only get 250. I'm pretty sure. Because I never heard of an equitable. I mean, I've worked with many equitable liens on homes, of course, and I've never heard of an equitable lien for a home. The home value, I've never heard of that. But I have heard of constructive trusts for that minus the money the other party put in.
Mhm.
And I've even heard the whole thing because it's really bad. As a penalty.
So is this right though in saying that it's subject to an immediate court-directed sale
Under equitable lien,
under an equitable
the
lien?
stocks are, right? Is there a-
Well, no, I'm just asking because I always thought with
But
liens.
equitable lien, you can't force the sale. That's not right.
I thought you can, that's exactly what this, sorry, okay.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
we're looking at two different outlines. That's why I was like,
Well, you know what you could do though.
The purpose of the equitable lien is to force sale. I mean, that's what this is saying.
Well, it is.
Sure,
I
sure.
think you can do well.
because it says it's subject to an immediate court-directed sale.
What are you guys looking
I'm looking at some guy who passed the bar and he's a lawyer now and he just put all his outlines on.
Just
Line.
legal,
at?
tree or three, it says three, I'm not sure. Some crazy.
Yeah, it won't let me go to that
For
website
fulfilling
anymore
a lien?
Why not?
because it says that it has spyware.
Oh, really?
But that's all the Barbary outlines because I used to follow along to that website when AJ would put her outlines up on the board and I'd be like, okay, it's gonna be this, and it was exactly what she said. So I think they're just Barbary outlines that somebody uploaded.
Well, the funny part, it is very funny that you said it because I was like, hey, AJ. She's got the Barbary outlines. You know, it's funny because, you know, again, I worked with this in a law office and we did not force the sale. We had to wait till they sold it.
Well, it says it has to be a court-directed sale. Well, it
That's
says-
possible.
it says it's
That's
subject.
possible. That's possible.
Interesting.
You could ask the court for that. I think you could ask for it. We didn't ask.
Yeah, because it says it's
Yeah.
subject to an immediate court-directed
Ah,
sale,
That's
and then the
possible.
proceeds will go to the plaintiff.
Because you are owed the money. Yeah, that's possible. I
Well,
can see that.
I think the difference might be, is that in this case, the property is part of
The property is what you're trying to get back.
Right, so if I just get hit by a car and then lean there, and then they walk, and I lean all their property in the county, I can't force a sale.
Yeah, I mean,
It's not an equitable
That's what
lien,
the
it's just a,
construction
Yeah, it's just a lien.
it's just a lien, it's just a lien for money damages.
It's like any other lien that we
Yeah,
have on our
It's like
house.
any lien for any
They
debt at
can't
all.
force you to sell the house. I mean,
Right.
it's, I guess,
Not
but
even
I
your
can't say it's
homestead.
not available through a court. That is possible. I think you might be able to ask.
Yeah, because this says that equitable liens are only imposed on improperly acquired property
Yeah.
to which the defendant has title. So I mean, if it's improperly acquired by them, then the court can say,
Yeah.
get rid of it and give them the proceeds.
Well, and it's an equity, so what does that tell you anyway?
But then,
It's fair. I mean, there's virtually no rules. So, I mean, it's funny because I'm thinking of this one case in particular. It was a very odd case. I wish I could tell you
I'm
about
thinking about a mediation that I have tomorrow.
Really? Okay.
This is like, I mean, this is way worse facts, but.
Yeah, but we had to stick with we went for both, that's the whole thing, but with the equitable lien, it was like, the client wasn't as happy with that because, and it's a very convoluted case, that's why but yeah, we couldn't force the sale, so we really had to push the constructive trust, because otherwise we couldn't get the guy to sell the house, and he needed the money. That was the thing, and he was, and he wasn't suing for the entire amount anyway, just for what his money was in there. So,
but you also couldn't get an equitable lien against Carol in this one though, because she no longer has the property,
well,
right? I mean, there's nothing to put a lien on.
Nothing to put a lien
I mean,
on.
she has
It's not
she
an
has
equitable
the
lien.
money, but you can't put a lien on money.
Right, well, I mean,
So
what do
you
you
have to
do?
get the equitable lien against his stock, right?
yeah, it would be against the right money source.
After this whole case is over, you can take your receipt for damages and go put an actual lien on whatever property they have in the county.
Yeah.
But that's a completely different issue than equitable lien, I think,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like equitable lien is a remedy within the case,
Yes.
but a lien.
A lien is something you have to do to get the judgment.
But the point I'm trying to make today, and I'm happy to talk about these things, but if you talk about a constructive trust, just
Talk about it.
it's always somewhere there. It can't not be. As a matter, I
Because there's something that they've invested the money
they're not
into,
gonna do
right?
it, right? It's not going to show up on the bar. They want you to talk about both, so don't do that. Okay, we are going to go through the question though, because I just want to hit the words which will send you in these directions. Okay, and things of that nature. If you don't mind. What remedy may Angela obtain against Carol? All right, so it's one of these questions. That's nice. And then what remedies against Angela obtain against Mark? Okay, so I've got two. Like I said, if I know nothing else, I'm breaking it down. I'm gonna go ahead. My worst case scenario is, Angela versus Carol, contract, damages, equity, or equity, number two, same thing. Okay, so again, I'm thinking though, well, what am I thinking out of the box though? If I see something like this, it might be crap, yeah, this might be wrong. Gotta make a lot of decisions here. Okay, Angela hired Mark. They hired a real estate broker to help her find a house. Okay, that looks like a contract to me. What do you think?
No.
No, why not? What would it be, Stuart?
Well, no, but I mean, I just wouldn't see the contract
I guess.
because it's a one-line sentence and there's rarely ever a contract on the bar that's just like one line.
That's cynical. I like it.
I mean, there's just not enough facts for me to be like, oh yeah, there's definitely there definitely is a contract between the two of them, but
And there's definitely a fiduciary relationship too. So.
Yeah.
That one. That's good. Mhm. Okay, so I'm thinking contract though, because again, I'm just doing my outline still. And it's like, I gotta talk about contract remedies. Even just seeing that, I can't imagine you wouldn't talk about contract remedies. Just saying. Okay. But notice that when they do that though, see, your cynicism is serving you well. But what they're also probably telling you is you don't have a lot of time to talk about the other stuff. On the other hand, they still maybe throw something in, right? Just to look good, something can. A contract offers under consideration act for management events. Here it seems like they get along just fine because of the other contract. It's just what I do. It's just how I do these questions. I don't guess. If I think I can write it, I write it. If I really can't write it, I move on as fast as I can. I just don't want to make a lot of decisions.
Mhm.
A week later, okay, so again, we're gonna always be very cognizant of this, so be cognizant of timings, okay, they get you a lot that way. Mark contacted Angela and told her that he had found the perfect house for her. All right, so that's cool, right? So far, so good. She asked him what he knew about the house. Okay, again, if any of you know anything about real estate, this is actually things always go super wrong. What's the rule? If you ever get into real estate on any level, shape, or form, buying or selling, disclose, disclose, disclose. You can sell anything you want. This house is radioactive and there is a zombie graveyard in the backyard and they come out every full moon. Great, do I get 10,000 off? Make it 20, you have a deal. 15, done. I can deal with zombies. And what's a little radiation?
You could deal with a murder house.
Oh, I dealt with murder houses. I
I
actually
wasn't murdered in
remember
a house.
looking up the
Yeah.
law one time and it's beyond fascinating. Actually, it was a murder apartment,
Oh.
which is even better. It was in downtown LA. And we actually went back and looked through the papers and it was in there.
See, I don't think
It
it
was-
was that far,
it was
but I
really
didn't
cool.
buy it. I didn't get murdered, no.
Oh, okay. She asked him what he knew. Okay, and see, it's funny for me. I go, okay, here we go. Anyway, he said that the house had been owned for some years by Carol, okay, who had kept it in pristine condition. Okay, again, pristine is pristine, right? So he's making a good, quite a claim here, quite frankly. When she visited the house, Angela noticed what appeared to be animal droppings on the deck, right? So again, these are kind of, what do you think? What did you think when you read that? Other than you,
They're setting up fraud.
and it looks like it, doesn't it? I mean, that's kind of bad. There's not really that many. Anyway, all right, good. Carol assured her they were only bird droppings. And I've heard that one before. Okay, that's what I would say. Had never appeared previously, that's a lie. Okay, if I was there, I'd say that's a lie. Just so you know, I looked at it though. And would be removed before closing. Okay, so that might be true, although we'll probably just cover that. Okay, Carol added that she never had any problems with any kind of pests. Okay, there's virtually never a house that does that, and in fact, in the rural world, you have to get what, by the way?
Clearance.
Well, no.
You have to have a termite inspection, I know that.
Termites. You still have to get a termite inspection, and they'll catch little things when they do that too. So that's, again, quite a claim, to be honest with you. And they have to back that one up. Angela made an offer of $500,000 for the house, and Carol accepted. Okay, so you see again, there are some facts there. I might say something like, this is our contract here, right? Maybe something like that. So far, what do you think though? Where are we going with this? Just like curiosity. If you're reading this, now I'm drawing a line. What do I think? What am I putting in my, what am I looking at? What do you think? What are you drawing? And I just, we aren't the answer today. But, what are you drawing in the margins? Where are you going? You should have some pretty good road markers so far, I think, right? Just off of this, just off of everything we've read, yeah? I mean, is anyone struggling yet? Or do you feel like, I'll be right with these questions, right? Yes, good, Victor, you too? Okay, I mean,
No,
not tell me.
I feel like I'm struggling, absolutely.
Okay, well, why?
I just had to sit down with the outline and read it because
I don't know
I mean, you may
which
not know a lot.
causes of action lead to which remedies. I mean, yeah,
Okay.
that's basically, it's as dangerous as that.
I need to be spoon fed some what you call it, some rules I can memorize. So I have to just sit down and look at the.
But remember that,
Let's
in
sit down.
the long run, just remember that rules are your least of your problems, really honestly.
Okay. See, like I just looked up breach of fiduciary duty and remedies, and here's a case from California that says a breach of fiduciary duty opens up equitable remedies, including constructive trust, rescission, restitution, and incidental damages. So that's an easy, quick way to get to Mark's money,
Very good,
right?
I like it.
But I didn't know that. Like, I can look it up in 10 seconds, because that's what I do at work, but I don't know any, like, I feel like I don't know it. Does that make sense?
Yeah, for sure.
Like,
Okay, yeah, I mean, these are the things we're gonna be working on. Okay, in this, some of these, still in this class too. But yeah, that's fine. I mean, again, we're gonna get there. That's not a big problem. Anything else? No, yes, okay, good. Okay, let's go to paragraph 2. After closing, Angela spent $10,000 to move. Stop. What do you think that is?
When she's already spending some
She spent
damages.
Wow.
$10,000 to move. What do you think?
Should I have a furniture or
Sounds like not a reasonable amount.
it's a $500,000 house? This is a pretty big house, right? That's a lot of
Depends on where she's
furniture.
moving to.
I guess so, yeah.
Because country,
She's got a lot of stuff.
there's
Yeah,
beds, so it's in the middle of nowhere. It's gonna probably be extra.
Okay, well, let's just assume that it's $10,000. What do you think about that, though? This is a remedies question. How are you?
It's just a damage.
It's damages, right?
Damage.
It's money damages. Right?
Mhm.
So we just gotta figure out a way to get it back. But I think now if you were thinking this was just equitable remedies, I think it just went way down the drain, right?
I would never think this is just like Aurora.
Yeah, no way.
Okay, but I mean, believe me. Okay. But this is clearly something that's recoverable.
Yeah.
So, again, this is, now, but you did have some interesting questions earlier. What kind of damages are these?
I agree with him now. I originally said consequential. He's saying incidental, and I agree with him that this is an incidental damages. I think under the incidental theory, you could probably get him going away too. You should get 20.
Well, why wouldn't it be?
Because you have to.
Because I gotta pack up now. Yeah,
Well, why wouldn't it be consequential then?
because it's not foreseeable as part of the contract. I guess it could be.
Well, some of them would be.
Some of them.
She's gonna
would.
have some moving costs.
Yeah.
See, again, it's not always, oh, by the way, I'm gonna have moving costs. That's not gonna fly. There's gonna be some moving costs. So what do
Right.
you think? Again, it's an interesting play. It's an interesting call.
It can fall into either one.
I mean, is this the type of thing that she suffered because of the breach?
Well,
Or is
no.
this the type of thing
She did
that's
it in
just-
reliance on the contract.
Yeah, so what does this sound more like? If it's on reliance on the contract or reasonable expense and furtherance of? What do you think? Again,
Then I guess it'd be a compensatory damage that's direct.
Don't say that.
What?
Don't say that in contract. Don't use compensatory.
Just
Stay away from it on the bar.
then it'd be a direct.
Well, but what do you think? I mean, why are you hesitant to go for
Stay away from
consequential?
compensatory when it comes to contracts?
Yeah, because contracts, you can do it for this, that's okay, but remember, compensatory damages are the basis for tort. Compensatory is to make you whole. The idea of a contract is to put yourself in a better position than you were. So technically speaking, they're a little bit different.
Wait, say the other one again?
Which one?
The not compensatory, but what?
Oh, for contracts, they're actually, the basis of the claim is expectancy damages. You actually want to be in a better place than you were.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. Again, they are compensating for the 10,000, so I'm not saying bad, but just watch that though, okay? Because really, you can get pretty off of the side on those. But they're gonna get the money back, so yeah.
I don't know, I guess it would be incidental. Because according to the legal dictionary, incidental damages are reasonable expenses incurred by one party to a contract as a result of the other party's breach of the contract.
Yeah, see.
So these weren't relied on because of the breach, or they weren't incurred because of the breach.
So
They're
this is really
incidental.
better.
Although that's the rule for incidental.
That's-
They're incident, and these are them.
No,
No,
you're not spending it as the result of the breach.
Oh.
no,
You're spending it before you even know that there's a
I like what
breach.
you said better. You're spending it reasonable reliance.
So it's really more consequential.
It's really more consequential. I mean, I think when you sell a house, you can expect someone's gonna have to.
This is what I get from
I
that.
think that's reasonable.
I just always saw consequential as like profits. Like,
Well,
because that's where we learned it.
You're not wrong.
That's where we learned it. Like,
Yeah.
it's about profits and
It's
like,
not profits. It can be sometimes.
I mean, that's what we learned it in regards to, especially with like Baxendale, because that's the case where you learn consequential damages. And that's profits. They said, oh, we're not going to do these if you don't do this. And yet they still said it wasn't. But still,
Well, the Hadley versus Baxton, that's a great class. Really. Do you want to know the real story of Hadley versus Baxton there really quick? Because most of your classes don't teach it to you. I know it sounds really weird, and you know how I love to look at the case behind the case. And if you were taught this, that's great. But what really happened in Hadley versus Baxendale was a little bit of an oddity. And what happened is that you had a situation where you had the miller, right? You had the miller who needed the crane to do so he could bring the grain over, right? And the thing is that he told him that there was, that he had to bring this by a certain day, and there was a timely fashion to it, or else there was, going to be a problem. But the thing is the fly that kind of got in the ointment, and why they said that the damages were not foreseeable was because the miller had a spare. The problem is he didn't know at the time he made the contract the spare was broken. He thought it worked. So you see how really what happened?
Well, that's not even a fact in the case. Like in the case that we read, I don't remember anything was fair.
That's actually really Hadley versus Baxendale. The reason why it failed because it wasn't foreseeable that the spare didn't work.
Yeah, I was wondering why the court didn't give it to him because they're like, oh, it has to be foreseeable. They have to know about it, and I'm like,
yeah.
In the case,
See, everybody has the
it
spare.
says that.
So when he said to him, this has to be timely and everything, Whitterer said, he has a spare.
Oh.
And even the miller did not know that the spare was broken.
No.
So when he went to get the spare and then it didn't work, it was like, now was it foreseeable that the spare didn't work?
No, but I mean, you're still telling the guy, I need this now. Like,
Well, but they all do that all the time. They always need it yesterday, right? Does that mean they do? Lesson number 2 to be learned from Hadley versus Baxendale, by the way. Does that mean is it always timely just because they say time is of the essence? What do you think?
well, according to you, our first year, yes, as long as they say time is of the essence, then yes, time is of the essence.
Guess what?
If it's known at the time of the contract.
Then you can get consequentials, or if it's, you said me, but I told you in the first year.
Yeah.
Remember what I told you when we did bar prep for the baby bar?
All I remember is that it has to be written in the contract.
If it's, if it's merchants, don't forget UCC, the law is a little different. Okay, if you say in a contract in UCC, time is of the essence, there is no question it's of the essence.
Oh,
And you know why? Because all dates in UCC contracts are what?
yes.
Essential. You are allowed to rely on their. Okay, so don't forget that. That's one of our loves to test on.
See, I don't recall. I'm looking at I'm really confused about Hadley v. Baxendale because so it was a spare.
What do you think happened in Hadley versus Baxendale?
I thought it was the
He
deliverer's
He just had
fault.
one, and
It was the deliverer's fault, not Baxendale's fault.
it wasn't Baxendale's fault. But even the deliverer did say, like, we need this done.
No. There's 3 parties here.
Yeah.
The money, the guy who screwed up, and the plaintiff. Baxendale's money, and he didn't do anything wrong.
I thought Baxendale was the guy who was fixing the press,
Yeah.
and he didn't do something, or he didn't get it back in time.
No, it was the deliverer's fault. The guy was supposed to bring it. Right?
No. He got it there in time, and the delivery guy said, we need this done, and he's like, all right, don't worry, we will, and then
Okay.
at least from what I remember. Because that's the case where we did like the mini trials, and Troy was the judge.
Troy? Oh gosh. Yeah, I don't. Yeah,
Boy, that was back in the day.
yeah.
Playing
That
yourself.
was a year. Yeah, before. It was years ago.
Yes, it was. I don't know.
But you know what? For fun, do me a favor. One of you guys remember this, okay? on Thursday. Let's hit up Alex.
Alex?
Oh,
He's here. See what he says.
Okay.
Now I'm super curious about this because I was reading this big, long scholarly article, so I'm going to assume. Anyways, with that said,
Well, how could the guy who built a new crankshaft know that the deliverer is going to F up and not deliver it on time? It's not reasonably foreseeable if I'm contracted to build you a crankshaft and I build you it and then give it to a dealer a deliverer who's going to deliver it and he's 3 days late. It's not my fault.
yeah, but I mean, but for purposes of the law, negligence is always foreseeable. I think that's the problem with that scenario. I mean, negligence is always foreseeable.
Even a third party's negligence?
You have cases where third parties, if it's going to be reasonably relied on, if you know that a third party is going to reasonably rely on your representations, there's liability for that negligence. That's why, like, for instance, you can sue in this case, if you had a faulty title report and you know someone was going to use it to get a loan, the bank can sue you if you're a title company because they know the bank's going to look at it.
I mean,
No, you're right.
Baxendale's in breach because he promised that it would be there on time.
Yeah, so he is in breach.
But it's not his fault. It's not foreseeable that the delivery guy is gonna mess up, right?
Well, but why?
Baxendale is the delivery guy.
I don't think so. It's some guy named
Yeah, I'm not good on names. That's
Pickford.
why I can't quite get into this. But
No, it says Baxendale and Oars, who operated together as a common carrier under the name Pickford & Co., delivered the crankshaft to W. Joyce & Co. in Greenwich. So Baxendale was the delivery agent and they were delivering it to them.
Are you on Wikipedia?
Yeah.
alright.
Everywhere else is case briefs and stuff like that, so.
Wikipedia is usually pretty good. I mean, I'm just gonna say, but sometimes it's just wrong. But
Yeah, so it looks like Baxendale was the delivery guy and they were delivering it to W. Joyce & Co. to have the new one made and they didn't deliver it in time.
Right, they were late. And he lost sales because of it.
Yeah.
Right? But he didn't really lose sales because of that. Yeah, I mean, he did, but the problem is that he had a spare. He already had a spare, the miller already had a spare. And the problem is when the miller went to get the spare, he didn't realize it was broken. So how could it be contemplated at the time of the contract that there was a broken spare?
Yeah.
That was the big problem. That's why they got off, basically. Yeah, everything else is like, yeah, they were kind of late. But was this chain of events actually foreseeable? And the answer was no.
Understood.
Okay. Yeah. I mean, we can ask Alex, and also if I can find that article, I might even still have it. It's really interesting. I mean, because it's sort of one of those things where it's like, you know, the heading is like, why is Hadley versus Baxendale so misunderstood? And the answer is because the underlying case is weird, but it does stand for that thing. It's just that this was a case that, you know, they don't really tell you the whole story in your casebook because you don't need it. Although, maybe I would argue after today we do need more of it. We should write them a letter and say, you ought to put a little more into this. It might be more.
yeah, I don't understand the case at all. I mean, I'm reading it and I just don't understand how that's not foreseeable. Yeah, I don't get it. How is that not foreseeable?
That he might be late. That's always foreseeable. I mean, I think that's always foreseeable.
But the case holds the exact opposite. That I was late. I was late, sorry. Right? Or what is it? Can you explain this to me, Vincent?
Can
Or
I explain what to you?
Hadley v. Baxendale?
Why it is not foreseeable?
Yes.
Well, because according to what Professor Drucker is saying is because Baxendale knew that they had a subsequent shaft to be able to use. And so if they knew that they had a subsequent shaft to be used, then a mere 2-day delay would not cause that much damages because they still had a spare. They just didn't have a spare to their spare. So it wasn't foreseeable that their spare was also broken.
Yeah.
And it's before the time when they could call them up and be like, oh shit, my backup shaft is broken, so we're SOL until you get this back to us. We need it back now.
And see, that was, they did, but throw this in. The deliverer could not have known because the mill didn't know. They didn't realize it was broken.
Right.
Okay.
You see?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's
Yeah, no, that
kind
makes
of
a lot more
case
sense
though.
now.
Yeah, see, now it's a cool case.
Now it's a cool
That's why
case.
it's so cool.
Yeah, now it's a lot easier to understand why they didn't fine for them.
Sure.
But-
Sure.
Would you find for them? Are you
No.
kidding me? You didn't know your stair was broken? You want them? That's not it. And it was very known in the industry that virtually every last one, even if they didn't know, virtually every last one had a spare. So that was one of those things that the carrier could have assumed there was a spare, that most millers would not just have one. So again, it becomes a very interesting case when you actually really read about it. To some degree, it almost seems like the plaintiff is trying to pull a fast one almost.
Sure.
Think about it, and of course, not so much. But it stands for the rule, they really do know. If they tell you something like, look, this is gonna be here tomorrow, if this is not here today, and they say, yeah, I understand, no problem, I get it, you're gonna have a cascade effect, right? You're probably on the hook because you agreed to it. You see what I'm saying? Doesn't that make sense that you should pay for that? I mean, you knew this was gonna happen. You knew this was part of the deal, and also I'll tell you why that works in the real world. You wanna know why? Because you'll probably pay extra for that. And that's so? Don't you pay that more for faster delivery? Oh yeah, absolutely. So, a lot of times in the real world too, that's another fact that goes into it. It's like, you see that and they go, well, what's this extra charge for allowance for streaming delivery? You call your client and say, why didn't you tell me that? That would be an I hate you moment, for sure. And it does happen. Believe me, it does. All right? Are we a little better about that?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Thank
Because
you.
again, I don't want you guys to miss something like consequential damages. I would argue consequential damages. I think it's, again, you don't have to price in the regular case. It's something that they suffered in reliance on, on their, this is a reasonable expense that someone's going to incur and the reason why it's quote unquote lost money is because it's, as a consequence of the breach. Now, in this case, it's probably even going to be worse because they're going to ask for what? Well, I mean, I think it's even worse than that because
And this one?
in this situation, you're going to ask, what's the remedy you really want? What's the remedy that
We got rescission.
she wants? Rescission. Then,
And punitive.
and then it's like, oh man, right? You're really in trouble because they got to make you what? If they rescind the contract, they've got to make you what? Whole and beyond, So that's bad, fraud in the contract, not good. So you're gonna, you at that point array of different. But the bottom line is you're the innocent party at that point. I mean, there's no doubt about it. There's no justification for it, right? Always keep that in mind. Don't give anyone who writes on never ever write. And I've actually had students write this. Are you ready for this? The fraud was necessary.
What, to sell the house? Yeah, because nobody else to buy
And
it.
then what I do is I say, put your hand right there. Get down from my school.
The stabbing was necessary.
Put your hand. Fraud was necessary.
Fraud was necessary, man.
What, do you work for the Trump administration?
It was the only way I could get my way.
I can hear a client or two in mine actually. Well, how was I supposed to sell this house?
I was supposed to sell the bad infested house.
Yeah, bats no less. There's houses in, particularly in La Quinta that have bats. Yeah,
Right.
no, wow.
Know what I'm asking about buying
Yeah, they're
houses?
actually in the code.
Fumigate
And I've
that.
actually seen them flying through the sky.
Oh yeah, I see them in Palm Springs all the time, but they are not in
Palm
our
Springs.
house.
Yeah, they're actually in people's
Once in a while,
Yeah.
when I was a kid, we'd get a bat in the house. Like
Oh,
a couple of times it happened.
Where do you?
Just in Palm Desert.
Oh, Palm
That's
Desert.
where
Yeah, I
my
can
mom's
do that.
house.
Yeah.
Once in a while.
We definitely get them in La Quinta. There's
Yeah.
houses with bats in them.
We have them all the time in Vermont. All
In
the,
Vermont.
they're all over.
There's bats.
Yeah, at like dusk, if you're outside by the lake, you just see them
Oh,
going by,
yeah.
eating all the mosquitoes and stuff,
The bugs.
the gnats.
That makes sense. Yeah. Oh, man. Y'all don't want to see the bats in Houston,
I don't want to see any of those
Texas size
massive
bats. To eat the Texas size mosquitoes. Pretty place to do it. Anyways, after closing, all right, Angela spent $10,000 to move it safe. Good now, we got the hell out of there. A few weeks after moving into the house, a couple weeks later, it's not too long, Angela made several discoveries. Uh-oh, that's a bad word.
Sure.
Real estate. First, the house suffered from a seasonal, what does that tell you?
She knew about it.
Occurring, yeah, so it's hard to believe they didn't know. Infestation of bats freak people out, that's bad. Which urinated and defecated on the deck. By the way, this stuff's really poison, just so you know.
Really?
So, oh yeah, that's bad. You
I don't know.
You don't want that stuff around you.
I don't want it around me, but I know it's poisonous.
What
It's
is
nasty stuff.
guano?
Yeah, back one was nasty stuff. Yeah, especially when it sits around for a little while.
Well, how do some tribes make plates out of them and stuff?
I'm sorry?
Don't some tribes make plates out of them? Actual ceramics out of it?
Oh yeah, you can do that. Yeah, they do that in India too. They make and there's some things are good about
Yes, so.
that guano.
Look at
your life
Things
expectancy.
they can actually do.
Do they
But
take
that
the
stuff's
second
nasty if you let it sit around too long. It gets really toxic.
This is called back guano.
Second, Carol was in fact Mark's cousin. Had owned the house for about a year and had been desperate to sell. Okay, so that's fraud. Okay, so the minute you hear fraud, where are you going again? What's the number one you gotta get in there,
I'm sorry?
Constructive trust,
right? Construction.
punitive
trust,
damages,
Munis, what else?
equitable title or equitable
And
lien.
what else do you want? You always want your first shot. In
Rescission.
Rescission.
Let me go down my list a little more.
I have several students that forgot rescission. You can't pass this one and not say rescission. That's crazy. You know what I'm saying? That's why fraud is so bad, because you want the whole thing canceled. You want to be put back in the same position that you were when before none of this happened. And then you want everything on top of it. See? That's what you want.
You can make tea out of guano?
Yeah.
It's actually, they actually can make an hallucinogen out of it too. But I hear it's really dangerous, so.
So I was like curious, at what point is it toxic? Like,
Yeah.
Well, when it
It's
sits
toxic.
around, you gotta be really careful. Apparently, this stuff gets really toxic. So, Mark was aware of, okay, so we have a lot of trouble. After the sale, Mark evenly split the proceeds with Carol. Okay, so if this was.
Which is goofy because it actually that's a second breach of, or actually a third, I think, breach of his duty of loyalty regarding his fiduciary, relationship.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
He can't be paid by both parties.
You can if they sign off.
Well,
That's the funny part.
this is
Nobody
not-
signed off here.
This is fraud.
You can actually sign a contract saying you can actually do both sides of a transaction, but you have to get them to sign off. Very
The
lot of
broker
paperwork.
can do both sides of the transaction.
Yeah, they can do both sides of a transaction. I mean, agents do it all the time. So,
Interesting.
and I do believe brokers can too. You might want to check that, but I'm pretty sure they can. But you have to have a lot of paperwork. So, yeah. Do it anyway, so. And had been desperate to sell it because of the bats. Mark was right with that. Invested is $250 in stocks that are now worth $750. Okay, well, how are we gonna, and see again, what comes to mind? How are you gonna get to this $750? They're not throwing you in there for nothing. So what's your theory?
Constructive
It's gotta be something in equity, because you ain't getting these damages. How? I can't think of a single way. Not a one, but I can.
Punitive.
Constructive trust will get you there. Punitive damages?
Yep.
You can ask for them.
Damn straight. Let's say if you're doing rescission,
Let's see,
so that's
that's
500,000. So
3 to 1.
250,000. You're not going to go above a 10-to-1 ratio.
Oh, this is 3 to 1. That seems very reasonable.
Exactly.
And this is a maritime law, so it doesn't have to be 1 to 1.
Exactly.
It's not over $1 million.
On that? Victory. See, now we're getting, now, let me take a second though. Are you starting to see how they flow together? That's all I want another day.
How where are
How
they?
the remedies flow together now. And that what we're learning in this class, you see why we need to piece these together? In the real world, you have to ask for all these or it's malpractice. Really, if you don't ask for restitution, if you don't ask for constructive trust based on these facts, oh my God, what the hell are you doing? You know, and this is, but you see how, really in a very funny way, remedies are pretty cool because it's really like a mosaic. It's just like you're putting in the pieces to make the picture. That's what I love about remedies. It's like you just sort of, well, how am I going to get this? Oh yeah, how am I going to get this? Oh yeah, how am I going to get this? Oh yeah, how am I going to get this? Oh yeah, Kool-Aid. Sorry.
Too many glass walls.
So are we starting to get there? You see why I like the check the box technique so much? There's always a way to get something, especially with fraud. Fraud, you know, here's my legal hint for you for the day. You write this one down as your rule. Fraud is bad.
Okay.
Okay, so far so good? Okay, again, I just want you to get a feel. This is what remedies is about. Okay, I want this, how? I want this, how? Remember, the underlying case is pretty done whenever you're dealing with a remedy. Don't get hung up in the underlying case. That's how students easily fail a remedies question. You get hung up in the underlying case, you try to argue it's not this, it's not that, that's bad. 99% of the time, it's not gonna work for you. It's just yes or it's no. I'm gonna get this or I'm not. That's it, or I think it's reasonable or not, even like that. Because it's worth bringing up, then why wouldn't you? You see what I'm saying? Remedies is a little different. You have to take the attitude, why wouldn't I say this? If I don't say it, I can't get this, you know? I mean, if other classes are similar, but usually you know what the charge is, usually you know what the action is. It can only be so many. This one's a little complex, this one's quite a few, but usually those are pretty straightforward, but the remedies is you really gotta pay attention. You know, different money sources, different items, different fill in the blank, you know, with different actions, different prohibitions. They require a knowledge of, you know, a good knowledge of where you go for this and how they fit together, how you can ask for them to become a really nice kind of mosaic. That's why I like this question, because you can really see that you can build a mosaic of remedies. And they pretty much, you know, when it looks like it's done, it's done. You know, it's like I've covered everything. Those are the remedies papers. You know, I've covered it all. Some can be more straightforward. Some are great. If they're more straightforward, fabulous. I mean, there's some that are just TROs, prelims, and, you know, permanents, and that's it. I've seen a couple like that over the years. Not that weird.
Do you know when we're scheduled to learn about constructive trust?
Let's see. See, you should have learned about it already. I'm not
Should we have there?
Why? Did you really not get this in course?
No.
I've never, I mean, it's a brilliant idea.
Something. Yeah, that's, you gotta know those. Those are actually really important.
You know, I only ever remember it in Wills and Trust.
Let's see. Constructive trust. Let's see.
I mean, I think we've got the, you know, you taught us the basic ideas of it, but I don't ever remember learning about it. I mean, that's not a shocker. Sometimes I just forget stuff, but, you know.
Let's see. Contracts, land use, where it is.
Have there been like limits on damages in week 2, like that early?
Oh, did we?
No, I don't think we've gone over them yet.
No, not any realistic way. Well, it's gonna be under, oh man, I'm not exactly sure. If I had my outlines here, I'd know, but I only have one.
It's gotta be under recovering more than plaintiff lost, right? Week 11.
Yeah, it's gonna be down the road. It's not by the mid, I can tell you that. You're not gonna have constructive trust. Very unlikely.
Disgorging.
Although,
I bet it's under disgorging profits
that's possible.
in
Because you can get a
chapter 8, section
727.
that sounds about right. I was
Yeah.
gonna say it's in the 7s or the 8s, I'm almost positive.
27.
Yeah. So.
Where'd you get that? It's not in the table of contents.
No, but it's in the back of the book. I mean.
Oh, okay. Well, there it is, book constructive trust. It is the table of contents. Yeah.
Yeah, under restitutionary rights in specific property,
It's
benefit to
not
defendant as the measure of relief. And it's
What page?
a note. Oh no,
So
it's a full case on 728. Rufin versus Rufin.
That sounds good. Oh, Rooten case, yeah,
And Paulini.
that's good. Yeah, it's around 7s and 8s.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm gonna go look in the book though. I'll do that on my own. I'll look at your truck thing. I'm real curious because it said something.
I-
It's this big tort law. There's something in there.
Let me look at my tort outline because
Yeah, that's curious.
I was anal on
Because
everything.
even I remember back in the old days, I know I learned constructive trust in a couple of things. My final was on that in my tort course. I still remember that, strangely enough. That wasn't unusual. So,
it's not in my tort outline. And my tort outline is 20 pages. It is 730.
oh, wait a second.
Yeah, I mean, I have constructive knowledge when it comes to premises liability.
Well,
That's the only time that it's coming up in my
I'm
outline.
gonna look it up.
And that's like a huge outline that I wrote for this.
Well, what about, what's his name? What about,
It's like 100.
guy?
I think point font's like 120
Fleming?
I didn't learn anything for plumbing because I threw out my CD still in the plastic wrap.
You did?
I didn't listen to them once. I hated Fleming.
But how do you know if you didn't listen to him?
Because, okay.
This guy.
I
So-
hate him.
No, I hate him, but like, I didn't like the course. Because like, I would study with Chris and Victor, and they'd be like, this is the rule. And I'm like, that's not what we learned in class. I was like, this is how you write it. And I'm like, that's not what we learned in class. And I didn't want to learn two different ways to do things. So I just said, I'm not going to listen to plumbing.
Okay. I mean, I can understand that.
Fair enough.
So damages, we have maximum recovery rule.
I mean, I never looked at anything other than market.
Non-economic, economic, collateral
Interesting.
source rule, mitigation, punitives, micra, pure economic loss cannot be recoverable, cannot be liable for wrongful death of the fetus,
Did he get pop up on the baby bar?
can be liable for wrongful life, can only recover special damages. But yeah, that's all we learned for damages. Other than abatement and injunctions for nuisance, but that was it.
Let's go home.
Let's go. You just have to learn what we were supposed to learn tonight.
Well, I tell you what though, why don't we take like 10 minutes, and then we'll just go, the cases are not terribly difficult tonight. And this is what I really wanted to do, so. Again, this is what we're shooting for.
See, to me, that scares me because I should know that, like he knows car accidents. I'm serious. That's
what you do at work.
that's what we do.
Oh, that's what you do?
That's what we do.
Oh.
We do real property and we do it like that.
Really?
Yes.
Okay.
And it's just like that. It's because somebody bought something that's messed up. It's like that's like a third of our cases, and I couldn't give you the remedies. You know, to me that's horrifying.
Yeah,
Just settle.
now you can.
Exactly.
Take a settlement check.
You can walk up and go, ask your lead attorney, we should have asked for restitution. And if they say, what's that, lead? Just go or player. Wow. I can't just know. I gotta think about this.
So what?
It's just.
That we didn't learn that?
It's not good, bad, or indifferent, it really isn't. I mean, every class is good for certain reasons, bad. But at my school, we learned badly. I never understood it at all until I looked it up myself, right?
Yeah. Although I read the full case, like from the English court, it doesn't say anything about a backup chef in there either. Although I don't know if it was the full case. I mean, it was only.
I think, I know this sounds weird, but I think in the real case, it's in the footnote.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's no footnotes or anything on that case.
I think I remember the thing like footnote in the real case. But
Call me, something with the turtle. I just thought that was weird, and it's good. It's good. You know, because you don't know what she did if you're not, you know, maybe you're active.
So she's got a freaking AA.
Yeah, you find out. So that's why I had a feeling. I was like, don't tell me.
I felt like, you know, it's not for me
No,
to
I
say.
totally get it, yeah.
And
No,
so,
she offered a freebie. She's like, yeah, I need that.
so I was just shocked. So like, wait a second, you, and she's like, I was like, you sound like he was right. I'm not just talking to you, just, I knew kind of the way she was talking about the past, most people come right away saying, oh my gosh, you should read it. She would have been, I mean, she sounds, she'd be a great candidate all the time. Yeah. So, yeah, and it is, I feel like that it's true, older, so. Yeah, it's good.
So if someone is a domestic violence victim, what's the exception for Crawford?
What?
Someone's like, can you get in a testimony on video when the DV victim doesn't want to show up anymore? They become unavailable purposefully. What's the Crawford exception?
There isn't one.
I think there is. That's like specifically one.
You
If you want to
object.
have the testimony, they're unavailable, and it's not your fault.
You object on the grounds of spousal privilege.
Yep.
And you cannot use your spouse's words against you.
I think there's an exception to that too.
Yeah, good.
Suburbia.
Oh, you've got to be kidding me. What?
You're actually getting me by it. Just access to stuff.
You get access to like the videos and stuff like that, but I just got the notification that they mailed me my books. So
Cool.
I'm still trying to decide whether I'm going to quit
Good what?
or not quit, but take a leave for the 2 months before the bar.
Oh my god, you won't quit.
See, I just don't want to have to like come back after the bar and like try to get a job as an attorney without
Having fun today?
having passed the bar. So I'm kind of
So you
nervous.
want to just stay at the job so that you don't have to quit?
Yeah, well that way I don't have to look for a new job with this weird cloud over my head of I don't know if I can.
Right. I'm just gonna sit in my spot until I pass the bar. Or they like say like, "Will, you need to get the fuck out."
Yeah, so, like, I've been thinking of quitting the
GTFO
bar, but I just don't want to have to try and get a job in that interim period.
Well, they're gonna give you time off, right?
No, not really.
Yeah, they are. Just go talk to her.
I mean, I can take like a leave of absence probably, but
Yeah.
I want my girl to be there when I do that. Which I think she's going to be so overwhelmed because the associate is pregnant, so she'll have her baby right around the time that we take the bar.
It's not your fault, dude.
No, but
Your bar is as important as her baby.
she also
She got
hates the other attorney that she hired a couple months ago, but he's been there too long to get rid of him.
Your bar may not be legally protected like her baby, but it's more important to you.
I agree.
I mean, so you make it
She can
happen.
still get rid of that baby at this point. But
Is that law passed in California though?
it's California. You could have an abortion up until like 8 months, 30 or 29 days.
Nah, it's just murder at that point, jeez.
Nah, it's California.
Just give birth, it's gonna come out in like 24 hours.
Well, I know California has that like law that you can just give up your kid.
Oh yeah, just bring it to the police station. Be like,
Drop it off.
I don't want.
So you need to leave it in paperwork or just like there it is?
So you have to leave it at specified places.
I got the fire department.
There's a church. I think it's churches, fire departments, hospitals, and police departments. Somewhere where, or no, I think it has to be left somewhere
where you reasonably know that somebody will come and find it.
I know, but does it need like a birth certificate, or is that gonna be traced back so you just leave it there?
Then you just leave it.
No paperwork.
Leave the fucking thing.
I don't think they have partial birth yet in California. I'm sure we're on the way. So you just get away with it.
Well, I'm sure if it's,
Dude, it's so murder, man.
Might as well be like,
I'm sure there's the life and viability exception.
might as well be able to abort a newborn. It's like, might as
Yeah, just have them fucking dead, dude.
No.
at that point, if it can be born and just sustain itself, doesn't, I think that's murder at that point. Then.
California
Abortion.
abortion law.
You're just killing a preemie. You're just,
Not the abortion rules. Oh, it'll give me
Random insurance.
might as well be able to abort the kid after it's born.
I was arguing with all of my friends back in New York that were like all against the new abortion bill.
Dude, it's horrible.
No, it is. What is horrible about it?
Well, okay. What it's designed to do originally was actually kind of a good idea. It was designed for those women that don't have any access to medical care during their pregnancy, and also during the third, they're like late, and they're like, shoot, like my kid is sick. And I have two doctors, if you have two doctors and the mother saying that we're gonna abort this kid, you can do it.
I
That's
didn't
your
read
law.
that anywhere in the law.
But
And I read the law.
no, that you have to have two physicians, two practitioners.
Yeah, we
Where?
can't-
I read the House bill.
There's no House bill. It's a state law.
It passed in the New York Senate.
Okay.
Therefore, there has to be a House bill because they're the ones who. That's how the New York
That
Senate
affects
works.
California.
I don't know how the New York City.
But I read it, and it's not in there anywhere. All it says is that
Really? Because that's what I was listening to NPR. Like I listen to NPR almost every day.
no.
They're
Okay.
talking about it. You have
So
two practitioners.
what it allows is for any medical practitioner to perform an abortion. So that is nurse practitioners, physician assistants, or a doctor, not like nurses. Anybody can get it done up until the first trimester. So you can get abortion at all within the first trimester, or up until viability, which I think is like 20-something weeks. And then after 20-something weeks, you can only get an abortion for health, safety, welfare of the mother, or non-viability of the fetus. And it says, like, if it comes out alive,
See, here's the thing.
you can kill it.
That's fine.
I support your abortion. I don't support the abortion of my kid. I support the abortion of your kid.
Well, that's all that matters. That's why.
That makes sense.
You get someone pregnant, it's not gonna be your kid, it's gonna be her kid up until it's born, then when child support's done, then it's her kid.
Well, it would end a
That's what she
relationship.
did.
It would end a relationship. I think that it
Well,
would.
it would, yeah. But
You know, it
would
would
you
just
be
be
tied
like,
up for 9 months and then just.
yeah, like well, you decided instead of like starting a family to like kill the kid, like it's kind of like you decided they were not having a relationship. You know what I mean? Like, I think they go hand in
I
hand.
did the same thing if you got me pregnant.
Don't you? Well, I guess there's no easier way to get rid of me.
And you know what? You wouldn't even know about it.
See, yeah. I'd probably rather not know about it.
I would take the pill,
Oh,
Well, that doesn't count as a pill.
I'm okay with it. I'm okay with the
spill
pill.
water over the toilet, and push out your kid.
Well, the morning after pill is still okay. It's just.
Well, no, that's how you do an abortion.
'Cause it's just
in
a
the first
forced period.
trimester. Yeah, they just force you to have your period.
No, they reach in and they cut the baby apart and pull it out piece by piece.
That's not within the first trimester.
Oh.
There's no baby. to do
Oh, actually,
that.
no, there's a little
That is
vacuum.
okay.
Okay, within the first. I thought you meant in the last. I thought you said something.
No, within the first trimester, you take a pill and
I thought it was like small enough you just get a vacuum.
flushes you out. What?
I thought it was just a little vacuum they put in. Just,
That's when you're.
Does
That's
it
when
make a
it's
sound?
older.
Does it make a sound?
I thought it'd be more of a worry. I
What?
thought that was more like a worrying sound like for a vacuum.
Well, there you go. I like that.
And then it's like in Star Wars, it just kind of hangs there and hangs.
I thought it'd be like the Matrix. It just kind of goes down too into the toilet.
In the toilet, like a goldfish.
Like Matrix. You
I never watched Matrix.
Yeah.
The movie came out like when I was
know? Yeah, I watched it when I was 10.
I think I have seen the first Matrix, but I was so young that I just was like, the fuck.
Yeah, you have to watch it when you're older. Because then you're like, oh, that makes sense. Then you watch it after taking science classes, you're like, none of this makes sense.
This makes no sense. Did you find the rules in California?
Not really. I'm looking for them.
So you think there should be parental consent for abortion?
For his kid.
For your kid or for all kids?
Parental consent?
Not parental, but
Like,
Paternal consent. You know what? I think that if she's willing to walk away from it, that she should be able to, and the husband should be able to say, "I'll take the father."
Okay, I'm gonna take it.
I'll take the kid by myself, and you can just fuck off.
I feel like
Because you take her uterus out and put it in you?
No, well that works. Sure.
You're gonna make her carry it for 9 months?
yeah, pretty much make a surrogate contract.
What?
I don't know.
Or if you're married and she does this, I feel like she just forfeited her rights to everything.
That's not.
I mean,
You're not gonna commute anymore.
yeah. Well, I don't know. I'm not gonna go to your property about it, but like seriously though, if we're like together and you get pregnant and you kill the kid, it's kind of like a determination that you don't want to be together in a family type relationship.
Yeah, that part's just over now.
Like at that point, you end the like just on a logical basis,
You abort the relationship.
you end the relationship. Like you have made a decision that this relationship's not going to go to any higher level at all ever. To the point where you're going to kill a kid over it. Like really though.
Yeah.
I don't know. That's my personal feel on it. You know. Yeah, but what do you think? Do you think that the father should be able to say, "I'll take the kid"?
We should, but then I feel like he should waive. He's gonna have to waive his rights to child support.
Oh yeah, yeah.
Sorry about that.
I actually think so too.
Conversation.
Then that'll open the door to like girls holding their kid hostage. Should either
Right.
waive your rights or waive your rights or all aborted.
You gonna do real property when you get out?
I would like to actually.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
It's really cool.
Yeah.
I always liked it.
Yeah.
The owners can get a little annoying. I'm sure you know that by now. But
Yeah.
it's pretty cool stuff. I always thought it was really interesting. Some of the better or interesting cases I had.
Yeah.
I was curious because they're always telling you stories.
Sure. It's always a big mess, you know.
Pretty much, yeah. Major big mess. And they've always made it 17 times worse by the time they get to you,
Sure.
which is always very exciting too. That's true. But I always found it very, and it's really good out here, by the way.
Yeah.
It's good law out here. Very
Right.
profitable.
Right. Yeah, I really like it. The only thing I don't like is that sometimes we run into a big firm that is just like a low-level newbie associate who's been a lawyer for a year and a half, and their goal is to run hundreds of hours of discovery. And that's their goal. You know, like they're not about moving substantive rights forward. They're about like getting their billable hours up to 2,000 a year and, you know, making money.
Oh, yeah.
And that sucks because
Yeah.
if we're not moving somebody's substantive rights forward, I don't want to do it.
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I do it. I sit there and I fiddle with all discovery, but I want to move somebody's rights forward or I don't want to goof around with it. Does that make sense?
Oh, yeah, totally. Well, because you see the real property and
I like the local lawyers though, because nobody really, I mean, locally nobody really tends to do that. Like they don't run like, you know, hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of, you know.
these are the big firms, though, see what they do is
Of
with something like
interrogatories.
this and with insurances, they give people such cut rates, you know, and that's why they run up the hours, because it's like, okay, well, I'll charge you half for this. That's, you know, I mean, I remember one time I had a case and we were going up against a Los Angeles firm, very well known, actually. And the thing was, they were representing an insurance company, and so they were collecting $90 an hour.
Oh, that sucks.
Yeah, so what do you think we got for that? I mean, they just sent over,
Yeah, they just blitzed you with work.
get it up as high as they could.
Right.
But see, we don't do that. I mean, we work for an insurance company and we do as little like law in motion as we can. Because we don't get paid enough to do it.
You work in LA?
No.
Okay.
But that's the way it is in with those big LA firms.
Yeah, yeah.
They just pile each other with discovery, and it's almost like a cabal. Like it's like they're all making money, and nobody's rights are being moved forward, and it's kind of sad. If I were a judge, I would have something to say about it once in a while. You know, if somebody hit me with reasonable attorney's fees, I'd be slashing them.
Well, I mean, I wouldn't disagree with you. I was on the plaintiff's side, so fine with me. But, you know,
Well, you're usually on the defense
that's the
side.
name of the game down there, though. Sometimes.
Well, even in LA, the plaintiff side does it too.
Do they?
Oh God, we have one firm in LA where they object to every single subpoena we issue.
That's not you.
Yeah.
Every
Yeah.
single, even if they are attorney referred doctors that they have never gone to before in their life, they will object to them saying they could have protected STD information in those medical records. We're like, well, then we guess you shouldn't have told the attorney referred doctor that you have an STD.
Pretty much. Yeah, so you can on camera. See. I've done. Okay, so today we're preventing harm again. You know, again, the goal of injunctive release is to prevent harm. Certainly something going on. Measure of injunctive relief, things of that nature. Modifying injunctions, right? Permanent final injunction is no longer applicable. Again, we kind of touched on this last week. I mean, in practice, is a permanent injunction really permanent? The answer is no. It has to end somewhere. The court cannot keep jurisdiction over anything forever. Okay, so again, as we go forward, depending on the situation, right? I think I mentioned that again, one of the more interesting ones I've always thought of is the Brown versus Topeka case, which ended in the court finally said, we're out of here in 1991. Up until that time, they kept jurisdiction. So from 1954, right? If I recall all right. So from 1954 to 1991, the court insisted that they keep jurisdiction because they insisted that Topeka School District had not integrated according to their rules. And that's kind of rare. I mean, the ones that are a little odd are interesting depending on your point of view are like prison cases. You know, those can be really interesting. School cases can be really interesting. Because remember, you know, to say the court doesn't cause some of their own troubles, you know, what can I say? You need to integrate, right? You need to become an integrated school district, right? You're segregated, blah, blah, blah. Okay, how do we do that? We don't know. Okay, some years later, Brown 2, here, this is how you do it. Okay, we did it. We didn't mean that. Brown 3. And so it went to Brown 4. They had 4 different Brown cases. And it's really, when you sort of read them and you look at them, you go, it's pretty interesting. And it was false on both sides. You know, Topeka had dug in their feet, and that was the end of it. You know, so be it. And they were just, you know, whatever they were going to do. And the court was, you know, it's interesting that they kept it for that long, but it also shows the problems of keeping it that long. I mean, the courts are not, you know, to a great degree, they're not in a position to do this. I mean, I'm not speaking poorly of judges or anything, but they don't know everything. They just don't. And they do a pretty good job. They're bringing masters, they're bringing experts. You know, they do. I mean, if you think about it as a practical matter, considering they do every practical matter, that they do a pretty good job. But again, they're not. But it's not like they know all these things off the top of their head. It's not like they're personally the people that handle all these cases. They don't know everything, and certainly for the most part, they well, I'm not sure, but you know, so it's a curious thing. So what do we learn from this, or what do we want to kind of pay attention to? Is just that, you know, you gotta, every day is a new day, and you gotta watch how things progress. It really is a process. It really is, you know, a process with really an unspecified time limit. You know, and it is a process where, some of the rules may have to change along the way, just depending on how the situation change. We don't know. A lot of things are just, we don't know. Now, one of the reasons I mention this is because, just so you know, Horn versus Flores is a very weird case, all right?
All these like
This is,
municipality cases were, I didn't like any of them.
yeah, they're pretty weird to begin with, but Horn versus Flores is particularly troubling. If you were to talk to most legal scholars, they would tell you that this is the court making up rules that don't really, to read the dissent. This case it is not the rules. They made it up because they wanted a certain response. They sort of like, think about, as this case was described to me, think about a football player who gets punted the football, right? Kick off on the football and they're on a goal line. They know where they want to go. They just got to figure out how to get there. That's this case. If you read the actual law that they were working, and you read the case, every paragraph says, yeah, but that's hard. We don't want them to do that. And you sit there going, oh my God. And then the dissent, which is quite good, actually, in this case, says, so what are you doing here? And the argument comes out, it's like, okay, but here's the deal. This case has not been challenged since it came out, so theoretically,
So good luck.
so good luck with this stuff. And if you read it, to me, it's, again, it's fascinating because it's Supreme Court law. So again, I'm, very curious about it, but it's amazing how they but I don't know of another case where they just ignored the law.
They all ignore it. There's no law. They just make it all up.
If someone ever says that's not true, just say, oh yeah, Horn versus Even my professor says it's made up law.
Oh yeah, Marbury versus Madison.
Oh yeah.
Straight from the beginning.
That's history. It's a little different. And that was John Marshall. He's a giant.
Still made up law.
Giant. Yeah. So, but this is really, everyone read it, right?
Mhm.
It's.
Well, it seems
I
like,
don't know what Justice Alito is thinking.
it seems like
He's making it up. I don't really know what else to tell you.
They wanted them to follow concrete. They wanted them to analyze how these different acts, like the No Child Left Behind and stuff like that, and the ELL learning program. There's a couple others. So I don't know. I mean, they wanted them to go into how the impact of this law makes the change no longer it makes it no longer equitable, but it's that in order 60B5 permits a party to obtain relief from a judgment or order if applying a judgment or order prospectively is no longer equitable. 60B5 may not be used to challenge legal conclusions on which a prior judgment or order rests, but the rule provides a means by which a party can ask the court to modify or vacate an order if a significant change either in natural conditions or in law renders continued enforcement detrimental to the public interest. So it seemed to me that the problem was not that these rules, I'm surprised that the lower court, getting this instruction, doesn't come up with saying that, and it does, we just didn't do our analysis very well. Does that make sense? Because if I were to look through what Alito wants them to do, I would come up with the conclusion that
That's what we did in our analysis, but
yeah, that we did. It's fine. We just need to flesh it out almost, right? Is that not true? I mean,
Well, I mean,
and the dissent just says like, oh come on, look at it. It
Yeah.
totally does that. It's like, well, yeah, I think that they're both right. I just think that I don't know.
yeah, I mean, I think that I definitely see what you're saying. My problem is I just feel that the majority of the court just lessened the standard because it was too hard.
Well, they raised it.
No, lessened it. I think that they gave Arizona all these breaks. Now, with that said, though, let's go take a peek at what was going on, just so you know. Okay, see, it really does have.
Well, afterwards,
Sometimes.
it says, or no, in the case, it says that every Republican was against it and every Democrat was for it.
Oh, yeah.
The court took no official notice of the fact, but all the officials supporting plaintiffs were Democrats and all the officials supporting opposing plaintiffs were Republicans.
Oh, yeah.
So it's completely political.
Oh, yeah, it was
No
very,
way.
very political.
Sorry.
But here's the situation, though, because I know this is going to sound odd, but I actually had a friend who lived in Arizona at the time.
That doesn't sound odd.
Well, now that you mention it. Okay, anyways, I had a friend in there. Thank you. I had a friend in Arizona at the time, and he had a 5-year-old daughter. All right, and she was in first grade. She'd gone into first grade. And what Arizona was doing, if you think about this for a second, is what they would do is they would split the time in the classes into 2 parts. The first part was the English part. The second part was the Spanish part. While the English part was going on, the Spanish kids sat there. While the Spanish part was going on, the English kids sat there.
Oh, that's just
So
a
they
shit
were only
idea.
getting 4 hours of actual instruction a day.
Oh.
What do you think? That was the problem with this
Yeah.
program, just so you
I
know.
mean, that's not legal.
And he was furious. He was furious, honestly, and he was Republican, but you know, it's in Arizona. But he was furious, and he just couldn't believe that they would make his daughter sit there for half the day. He's like, this is her school, you know? And him and his friends were, ooh,
To me, that is unacceptable.
thank you.
Even if you're a Spanish kid, even if you're a Spanish speaker, it's unacceptable for that kid too. Like, it's not just the English
Not
speaker.
fair
well,
for anyone,
It's not fair
yes.
for anyone,
It's
yeah.
crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy talk.
But I have point out, so they
Good.
determined that so the state provided 150, then they had estimated that the cost really should be 450,
Yeah.
then they increased it to 435 before this case was actually brought. Oh, sorry, 432.
Yeah.
So that's pretty good though, right? That's just about
Money-wise,
there.
they did pretty good.
But I mean,
Well, another thing to keep in mind when you're reading these types of cases is the court has a very bad habit of saying, fix it. Do it this way. No, do it our way. Do it your way. We changed our mind. So again, I'm trying to see both sides.
that's not why do the courts do that?
Because they're not really geared to do this. That's why.
Well, then they
I
shouldn't
just
do
like
it.
how the courts are like, do this, and then they're like,
Then they shouldn't be doing it.
and the legislature's just like, nah. And the court's like, no, really, do this. And I'm like, yeah. And so the court's finally like, all right, fine, we're gonna make you take money from here, put it to here, and then the appeals court's like, nah. It's like, how do you get anything done?
Pretty close. This was a big mess. But I just feel bad because I think that, the Supreme Court kind of punts, you know? That's what I think. I think that Alito wanted this answer. And I think that he just sort of found a way. And again, if you wish to reread it, but kind of when I was done with the case, I said, but why? But this is the rules. This is the law. You don't get to change the law. You know, but it's weird because they don't even really change the law. They just say, this is how we want you to interpret this. And it has nothing to do with it. And the standards, if you read through it, are ridiculously lower. Oh, they were so good on this. Well, they weren't so good on this. So what? What? You mean so what? What kind of a test is this? You know, it's just, think about how would you go forward?
Do you think it's
You have
because
to follow
perfect
these
compliance in some instances is not feasible?
That happens a lot.
I mean, obviously,
That's not surprising.
with government entities, it's highly unlikely that perfect compliance will be done.
Yeah,
I mean,
that's very unlikely.
with how politically charged everything is, especially
Well, and people
with in these days, I mean, the judge may order something to be done a certain way, but in the end, you have to come with a rule that's like, just like with anything, for the most part, strict compliance isn't feasible. So as long as you're just like with the prison case where they're like, all right, we told you to get down to this level, but we know that like perfect compliance isn't feasible. So instead of being at 100%, we're going to give you to 137%. And then even still, it took them forever to get there. And the court's like, well, as long as you're going towards it, we're not going to find you in contempt. Just get there.
Right.
And I think that's what this case said. I mean, it was basically the law has changed so much that as long as the state is doing what they need to be doing under the current law as it is now, then they should come out from under the court's watch. Because that was one of the rules, or one of the parts in the case was like, it says when the objects of the decree have been attained, namely when EEOA compliance has been achieved, responsibility for discharging the state's obligations must be returned promptly to the states and its officials. So, I mean, although they may not be applying to the EEOA, they probably are, but there's other educational type laws that have been implemented since the implementation of the injunction. So as long as they're substantially complying, the court's saying there's a need to send it back to the state as soon as we can, because we don't want to be in charge of it unless we absolutely have to be.
Well, I mean, that's kind of cool. That's the one part I do like, which strangely enough you picked on that, because they really need to get out of these things that are fairly, it has to be reasonable, and even I don't think. And then and all of a sudden, No Child Left Behind comes in, when the laws are changing. It's a mess. It's a mess. I will give them credit on this. I can see where you need to get out at some point.
At some point.
Yeah, but as a matter of law, again, this is a very criticized case. We don't know what's going to happen to it, but these are the rules. And again, the actual statute is still in place. It hasn't changed. Still a statute, but this is the interpretive case you would have to use. And again, I would argue that in most instances, the legal they've lowered the bar. So, is it practical? I don't know. You actually made a pretty good argument for doing that, actually, right now, in my opinion. But is that what they're? I don't know. Black letter. I mean, I'm a black letter law guy. People are shocked when I say that, but I don't know. So but that was a good argument.
I'm going to be Judge Learned Hand here one day.
You want to be the greatest judge that never got on the Supreme Court.
Yes.
Sweet. He was very influential, though. Don't kid yourself. I mean, he had a sweet job.
I wonder if he ever got nominated.
I believe he never did. He was not politically. He was not a political guy, and he had a very, very good job. I mean, he had a lot of power. He may have been one of the few justices or judges that you can think of that I'd actually have been losing power had he gone to the Supreme Court. Kind of weird, but it's true. He big time New York judge, and he had a lot of sway. And so, hey man, didn't hurt. I'm sure it really didn't hurt him all that much not to go.
His first name is Billings. I didn't know that. Billings Learned Hand.
Billings, was that it? Something like that. Oh, that's why it's be learned hand. I remember seeing that. Okay, so we good for that case? So again, all good things must end. That's fine. Okay, rights of third parties, interesting stuff. Remember, third parties have a lot of interest under the law. You remember third party beneficiaries. Unless you even talked a little bit today, and I probably don't remember from your real property class, but there's a lot of torts that are based on third party rights. If you have reason to know that a third party is going to rely, for instance, in the housing world on like a history or something, some report that you do a title search, and they tell you that they're going to take this title search over to a bank to get a loan, and because of some bizarre reason, you messed up and the bank suffers damages, they can sue you. Telling you flat out they can do that. So there's lots of stuff, that you can actually be sued for. Third parties, interesting, but it kind of has to be that way. But anyways, so again, kind of curiosity case. This is the this is the Chicago Housing Authority case. And again, these are cases that are not short. Again, to their credit, they're pretty big ticket items, right? This kind of idea about housing, funding. Mostly, I guess, is what this one's about. HUD, what they do and what they can't do, I suppose. But so who wants to give me this course, this class, this case, really quick?
Oh, sure.
Just
I'll
give me
do it.
some. Let's again, we're dealing with big issues, but this is it's kind of interesting, yeah. Everyone who HUD does, or they don't do.
What they don't do.
I guess in this case, but interesting case.
Okay, so the Chicago Housing Unit was building all of its public housing in African American neighborhoods, all of it. And so that's what it says.
Yeah.
And the respondents brought a class action against Chicago Housing and the HUD, alleging that they were doing this. They were trying to avoid integration. Essentially, they were trying to, and so HUD was basically required to do something, and then what they did is that they started moving the they started into the suburbs, and so the court ended up consolidating. So what was it? I don't remember.
Okay. Anyone co-counsel?
Basically, the court directed
Pretty hard.
HUD to build more houses in inclusive areas within Chicago, but there were no inclusive areas within Chicago in which to build these houses. So HUD was like, well, we can't comply with your injunction because there's nowhere to build them, and we cannot function outside of Chicago, and you cannot direct us to function outside of Chicago. And the court, and the Supreme Court basically said, no, they can.
Yeah, so they changed the idea of Chicago essentially to like the housing market of Chicago.
Okay.
Yeah, they're like, is it within the actual city limits of Chicago, or is it within like Chicago as a whole?
Right.
And they said, it's Chicago as a whole, not just the city of Chicago.
Okay, so what do you think about that?
Well,
just out of curiosity.
The case is that the reaction is that the inner city stayed completely segregated,
Right.
and the suburbs, basically, if you got Section 8 in the suburbs, you were much, much better off. But it was hard to get.
What do you think about that? Let's think a little bit versus Chicago. What do you think about the suburbs? Who's living in the suburbs?
Whitey.
Yeah, people that can travel in and out of the Whitey.
Whitey.
Sure.
Okay, let me put it this way.
Whitey.
Let me put it this way, then we can move on. You ready?
Okay.
It was racially motivated.
Yeah.
And the court's kind of like,
No way.
yeah, that was pretty easy. That's pretty
Racially motivated in Chicago in the 70s.
Well, you could read that. Well, you should read some of those stories about what's going on in those suburbs. Wow.
But you know what doesn't happen?
Yeah. Wow.
They don't
Was the
take-
suburbs worse than the? They're actually the suburbs where suburbs were better. Like you were way
They're
better.
better than inner city.
Well, unless you
Doesn't say how much better.
Rather than being like a suburb that is basically split between mafiosos and Ku Klux Klan members. There's lots of Klan people out in the suburbs. There was a case in the news the other day. What city? It's Cicero, famous city. Like a little bedroom community, and it comes out that they do the population, and it's half, retired gangsters and half Ku Klux Klan members who apparently get along just fine for
It's like an interesting mix.
Aurora's that way. Lots of those little cities out there. There's a couple of Bloomfields, I think it's called. Yeah, and you read about it, and it's like, ooh, these guys are ouch.
You know what they don't do though in Chicago? Knock you down, say homophobic slurs, yell MAGA country, pour bleach on you, and put an Instagram your neck.
No, they don't do that.
Apparently not. That's good.
But people say it though. Yeah, that happens all the time.
Right. You can talk trash about Chicago all you want and have a deep dish pizza.
Serious.
They're so good there. Oh my
I
god.
don't like this pizza.
And did you know, I'm telling you guys this, I'm telling you the best street food in the United States is in Chicago. I'm telling you.
Really?
By far.
Does not
Their
seem like a Greek
town
population
is
kind of place.
Great. It's so, you can't
But
get.
really, what does seem like a great population type of place? Like
Greece?
So good.
Maybe like,
he said in the United States.
maybe
United
like
States.
Little
Oh,
Greece and
Greece is great.
I'm sure there's like a Little Greece area
I'm gonna
in
Greece
New York
up
City.
on
There's a
that.
little everywhere in New York City.
I love
Like I'm saying,
Yeah, Greek food
what
there.
if we get better ingredients
Yeah,
than
it's
it's
good.
Greece
It's
and we make
good.
the same food with
It's-
our better
oh,
ingredients?
Well, then you get Papa John's,
Sometimes.
because they're better pizzas.
Just to die for.
Better ingredients, Papa John's.
Papa John's.
I'm gonna go with
Without Papa John.
Bills for New York style, stuff for regular pizza.
I love
Bill's is good.
Bills is good. For
Bills
New York
is
style,
just expensive. That's my problem with Bills.
Yeah.
You guys are too sophisticated. I'm like Costco is like $10. For
Costco has the best pizza.
Hey, Costco's
it's pretty good.
Costco has
It's pretty good, yeah.
Yeah, Costco's is great.
the price to flavor ratio is $10.
And, what's that? You know who else has pretty damn good pizza?
Sam's
You can
Club?
shop. Sam Club's is pretty good.
They're basically Costco
Have you ever
pizza.
had it at Ralph's? Ralph's is
Pizza?
Really?
I didn't even know Ralph's had pizza.
Yeah, where did that pizza?
Where they were? Well, the one by my house, they did.
Oh, not the one in Palm
It's not
Springs.
bad. It's really, I was like, wow, I could eat this.
Their fried chicken's good. I'm pretty sure the fried chicken we get on Saturdays is sorry. Yeah. The fried chicken we get on Saturdays is from Ralph's.
Is
Yeah,
that
it
true?
is.
Yeah. It's
Wow,
pretty
I mean,
good.
their pizzas, I was shocked.
I know, I didn't even know they did pizza.
And
I didn't know either.
I ate it without knowing where it came from, and they said, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's pretty good." And they said, "Try it."
Have you had pizza at Stuffed?
Yeah,
Yeah,
that's
yeah.
good.
It's good.
Wait, but I know we mentioned this before, but the best pizza in the valley,
They said Ralph's.
Ralph's is good, but
Was it
the
Bill's?
hood,
Oh, the
Oh, really?
Okay.
Okay. Okay.
Dive bar.
it is so
Yeah.
good.
The hood.
Oh,
I
man.
think when
It used
Colin
to
and
be a
Patrick
pizza
sold-
place before they turned it into a bar.
No, it was a bar first. It was over at it was over across from Elephant Bar originally. It was owned by Colin and Patrick Hood.
They
Yeah.
call it that was just the hood because it's like a slang term.
No, it's their last name. So the bar was in a strip mall across from the Elephant Bar, owned by a 7-Eleven over there.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it was just like and they eventually bought the place that was Cougars or whatever, right? Not Cougars. What was that bar
It
before?
was Cougars.
Was it Cougars?
Yeah, I remember
It
that.
was.
I haven't seen that in a while. I was wondering where it went.
Yeah.
That's good. Oh, okay.
And then they sold. And I don't think it's quite as good anymore.
Oh.
But
Yeah,
it was good, yeah.
It's really good.
I forgot Cougars existed. It makes me travel all the time.
I don't think I've ever been.
No, I never was. I was just like, I remember seeing it. It's like, oh, it's cool.
Bill's is my favorite. Right now. Like,
Bills? Yeah.
Well, they come out with the garlic spray.
Oh, really?
Oh, yeah.
I haven't been to Bills in like a
Ask him
couple
for
years.
ask him for this. Tell him you want the garlic spray. You don't want garlic on it, and they come out and it's called misting.
Really?
And you come out and say, "Can you garlic mist it?" Oh my god, it's so
I didn't know they did that.
It's so good.
I also don't ever eat there. I always get it to go.
You have to call our
Because the one in Palm Springs is so busy, like all the time.
It's
I know
well,
it's
I've
good.
never been to that one. I've been to Palm. It's really good. Yeah. Okay, General Building Contractors Association versus Pennsylvania.
Okay, I read this case like 4 times trying to figure out what happened, so I think kind of did it.
Okay, well,
So-
they followed Milliken. Okay.
So pretty much we have these this class of engineers and union workers trying to say, well, your hiring process is discriminatory, you're discriminating against us. And, during their trials, it looks like they couldn't prove that it all seemed really neutral because they were just hiring based on experience and stuff. They weren't really looking at the racial stuff, so they found that, there wasn't really any intent to discriminate by the employers, But nonetheless, they still said, well, you're still liable, you gotta help out. So they kind of put this in, I guess I don't know if it's injunction, but to make them hire more minorities, and find new minorities, hire some outside minorities that aren't in the union, find any then, hire some untrained minorities and then pay for on-the-job training, which I disagree with that. But, so the decree, they said it cost them about $200,000 a year to do this, but the issue was, can a party not subject to liability for violating the law may be assessed a proportionate share of the cost in implementing a decree. So they weren't liable, they didn't violate the law, but nonetheless the court still said, well, you gotta do this either way.
So let me just make sure I understand what you said. So if you haven't done anything wrong, a court can't issue an injunction against you.
That's exactly
Is that
how,
correct?
and then they reversed, I think I read the ending a couple times, I think they reversed it so that you have to do something wrong in order to have an injunction.
So in other words, before you can have a legal remedy against you, you actually have to have done something wrong? Is that what you're saying?
Exactly.
You're right, let's move on. They're sitting there going,
We can do anything.
"Do anything? What do you mean we have, well,
We didn't even get dragged into the case. It's not
imagine
alone.
this, if we make you do this, it'll fix their problem. What? That's crazy. Okay, anyways, that they didn't have to do. You have to do something wrong in order to have some kind of legal remedy applied to you. These guys are just totally innocent. Okay, again, it sounds like a weird case, but that's really what it stands for. Okay, they did nothing wrong. They just had nothing to do with the hiring practices. Okay, moving forward, let's see. We're out of third parties, right? Yeah. Now we're into choosing remedies, right? Okay, substitutionary or specific relief, again. Kind of a big ticket item, you got to what you want to do here, kind of the situation. We have what's called, again, kind of a basic law, irreparable injury rule, right? Again, it's irreparable through reparable. You have to go through the legal remedy. Again, this doesn't really change, it has to be inadequate. And again, what we're trying to do is prevent injury, irreparable loss. So again, we're looking forward, right? Because substitutionary just means, it's a fancy word for what, by the way? It says
Not compensatory, restitutionary. Money.
money. Okay, good. You
Damages.
want money or do you want an injunction? That's what they're telling you.
Damages.
Okay, that's what they're looking for. And again, when it's irreparable harm, I mean, how will money damages suffice, except of course, if you want to, again, look back at a weird case from your real property class, the Boomer Cement case tells you what happens when they let the harm keep going. And they just, it's my understanding, that's the one where if they shut down the plant, that the town
Will drop.
So what they do is they pay the farmers every 5 years, they assess the damage, and it just keeps going on. So it's not like it never happens, but that's really, just so you know, that's super. Honestly, I never personally heard of a case, anyone I've ever known who's done any of that.
Like where they keep it going,
That
but
just keep it going and pay them damages. I've never heard of that. That's the only case, honestly. I mean, there's a couple of you can read about it, but it's really, really rare.
Wait, say again, what was the?
Well, that was a case where
the cement dust
the cement
that went
dust,
into the air and landed on
right,
fields,
yeah.
they didn't stop it. They just
they
said
just said,
you're gonna pay them every couple of years.
yeah, they just basically they assess damage every 5 years, and they just pay them for the damage.
It's easy money, dude. I would say I want to do so many crops now. I can.
But there was something like I remember when I lived home, there was something like
cap and trade.
that, like in the Buffalo area. If you're on the Canadian side of Erie, you could hear like this vibratory tone, and it was terrible. And they could not figure out what it was until they realized that it was from a smokestack on the other side of the Erie, and when the wind blew just right, it would be like you blowing over a bottle and making that woo sound. And I think they sued them for an injunction because it made it like unbearable to live on the opposite side of the lake from them.
No way.
And
You put like some kind of like a tent over it.
they sued them for the injunction. I think they sued them for an injunction to get them to like stop it because they're like it drives you crazy because it's all you can hear.
Some kind of wind diffuser like on it or something. Like you can figure something out, right?
You could easily like reshape the silo or whatever it was, but yeah, they sued, and so I don't. It was like in the beginning stages, so I don't know if they made them change it or what.
No, he's a top on it.
Yeah,
Screen or something. I don't know.
they just have to change the top of it, even if you put like ramps on it or something like that for the wind to go up instead of just over.
Yeah, like the big thing that's on a truck, you know, to like
Yeah, like the wind thing.
Yeah, that'll work.
The wind guard.
What do they do?
It was like the very beginning stages because they had only just found out what it was that was making the noise. They're like, we've lived here forever and we could not figure out because it's on the other side of Lake Erie, and Lake Erie's like almost an ocean if you're on one side or the other.
That's a pretty big lake.
Yeah.
Wow, well, if you ever find out, let us know. That's actually
I'll see if I can find out.
Yeah, it's actually a really interesting case. I mean, I'm guessing that.
Granted, it's one country against another, so I don't know how that. But you just sue in federal court, right? Yeah.
Yeah, they'll take jurisdiction. I'm sure we got some deal with them. That
Yeah.
tells you what to do. So, ain't that all the way to the other side of Erie, though?
I think it was Lake Erie. I just remember reading about it when I was home.
Interesting. Boy, the lucky foreseeability isn't the standard.
Yeah.
It's not, again, nuisance is not a negligence action. So, here's my point. For years now. They're negligent. They're doing that on purpose. So, cool. Okay, so let's see about irreplaceable losses. Who can just give me the skinny on Pardee versus Camden lumber?
So cutting lumber, timber.
Lumber.
Yeah, I mixed up lumber and timber. Cutting timber on places land. The question really is that is this acceptable injunction? Because that is really like a product. It used to be. The court said that this was always a bad rule because our timber is like scarce and it's attached to real estate, and it's hard to like just row it back, you know, it takes a while. So it really belongs in the pile of land, and you can get an injunction on it.
Okay.
I mean, yeah.
I would notice, well, okay, notice it's 1911. Everyone caught that, right? So it's kind of an old case, and there, you know, here you have some of these different things. The question becomes, you know, if you're the owner of the land and someone cuts it down, you know, they can argue there's value to it, but is it irreplaceable? The answer is yeah, you might want a tree.
Not just like I'm just saying, you know,
Yeah.
you did change it permanently.
Yeah.
If you cut the tree down.
I just like how the court hasn't really evolved all that much though, because it's still like, yeah, if somebody's gonna tell you they're gonna kill your horse, you can't get an injunction against that. But if they're gonna cut down your tree, sure. And then the note afterwards, like, contrary to what the court says, if somebody says they're gonna kill your horse, you could probably get an injunction against them. But I'm just like,
Fair enough.
I can't believe in 1911 they're like, yeah, if somebody says they're gonna come kill your horse, you can't get an injunction against it. I'm like,
I like it.
You don't need your horse.
although then again, they used to think, oh no, just cut down their trees and sue them for the difference.
They were known to do that.
The forests of America were endless and inexhaustible.
Now not so much.
But I mean, back then, you know, you understand. I mean, the original when America started, you were allowed to do that, and the reason why is because we needed lumber, so they didn't want people.
To not cut down other
So
trees.
it's literally because of the need for lumber was so bad that they let people go on other people's lands. It's sort of like almost, remember your first use doctrine about, whoever got to the water first.
Yeah.
It's on your land, too bad, they diverted it onto theirs and watered their crops, it's theirs.
Mhm.
Right, same thing for many, many years. And then finally they kind of went, well, I don't know, we don't have that much lumber anymore, is this really a good policy? And so once that kind of went out, we started to get more like this and said, yeah, I think that he likes his trees, he can stare at them some more. But remember that it really was that.
To me, it's like,
Common sense?
Yeah.
you have to exist in a world that's fundamentally different
Oh, yeah.
to think that like
Well, I mean-
somebody's trees like don't get an injunction. You know,
Yeah.
you have to be in this world like, well, just go cut down wherever you want. There's millions of them.
Yeah, just go cut down your neighbor's trees if you lose your trees.
Hey, just get there first. That's the rule. You'd work it out later because we needed to build stuff and they wanted. And remember that most of America was, pretty foresty back then, and they wanted it cleared. So there was a lot of really good incentives to have people just go even onto other people's land and cut down trees. A lot of incentive back then.
But they got paid for the trees.
1911? Yeah, not so much, right? So
Well, yeah, they got paid for, didn't they get paid for,
Yeah, it's something got paid for the trees as long as they.
they didn't get paid for the trees though, right? Didn't they get paid for, diminution in value of the property or something like that?
You get
Because there's no sense in cutting down somebody else's trees if you're just gonna lose all the profit that
Well,
you gain from it.
Yeah, you sold them.
Yeah. So it's just diminution in your value because they cut down your trees.
And it's the only thing is you couldn't be sued for trespass. That was kind of.
Why?
You could
Unless
be
you put a
sued,
fence
but
up, I feel like.
there's nothing that's going to happen to you.
They
No different than trampling your grass.
Well, how tall is your fence? Did you have to use? Did you
Well,
number the
But the
fence?
horses broke a car. It's just a vehicle. You get on one.
Well,
You just didn't have
wait,
a
wait. Here's the big question: is it my grass? Is it my tree?
No, it's God's.
Sorry.
What's your deed
Do you
say?
guys remember the case also from your truck class about when they cut down the trees and then he turned them into the barrels by accident? Remember
They
they
wanted
got the
money for
value of the
barrels?
barrels because they were worth so much more money?
Yeah.
Yeah. So again, kind of an interesting, this wasn't irreparable harm, this was the exact opposite. Do you have to pay for the value of the slats now? The answer is yes, they had to.
I don't want the trees, I want those barrels.
Damn straight, they were worth a lot of money.
That's my wood and I want it back.
Now, is that really a constructive trust theory that's like cloaked into like an old law?
Oh yeah,
It's almost like the beginnings of the constructive trust theory.
oh yeah.
It's a raise in value. Interesting.
Yeah, a change in time can actually result in an addition of value, yeah.
Because you shouldn't get a windfall because you were really bad.
Right,
You know, like,
yeah, pretty much, okay. Okay, so again, we pretty much, again, some of this is kind of tort-ish, so it can't be that weird, right? I mean, just tort law, and that's what we do. Interesting, it's 1911. So
Yeah.
you can see how they did things. But again, earlier it was even weirder, I guarantee you. That this case almost makes sense. Before that, I don't know, the weird laws. Okay.
Yeah, the next case is on 391. That's an excerpt
That's
from a
not-
book
yeah,
that I
that's
skipped
not-
because it didn't matter.
The broke blue jeans.
Okay.
Yeah, no, the FW Maitland one.
Well, Duncan James is on the thing.
Yeah, that's the next case.
Oh, we gotta get the cameras. Yes, okay. Brooks, we only have 3 cases left. Oh, we're fine.
So basically in Brooks, he had an order for replevin
What's
So-
your plug?
to get back something that was wrongfully
Yeah,
taken
sure.
from you.
Yeah, the actual item.
So Cullimore sued Brooks for replevin, and he ultimately got a judgment for replevin. Brooks, on the other hand, said it's only worth $2,500, so I'm going to give you $2,500 instead of the object back. He said, no, I don't want it. I want the object. And so Brooks deposited the $2,500 with the court and said, tell him he needs to take the money instead of the object. And basically the court said, if a return of the property sought by replevin is possible, it must be returned.
So, what do we take from this?
If you still have the object, you have to give it back.
And
If you don't, then you get monetary equivalent.
and plaintiff has the option.
Yeah.
And you could take the money if you so desire.
So you gotta lose the
Yeah.
object.
I mean, it works both ways. If the plaintiff really just wanted the money, then the plaintiff can take the money. Okay?
So what's the repercussions of like pretending to lose it and just paying them out?
Fraud.
Fraud.
Yeah, that would be fraudulent.
It's gone. I shipped it to Canada.
It's gone.
I ate it. Had my bird. Fast. Okay, not bad. Oh, I love this case. I
This was
remember
such a
when they used to
dumb
do this.
case.
Continental Airlines.
Lawsuits. So we
What do you
have
think?
Continental Airlines had a coupon that, you know, give you up to like $100 off on price of $351 or more. And then you have this intra brokers who would get all these coupons and then sell them to brokers so that they could sell them to their clients.
Okay.
Pretty much being a middleman for these coupons, even though on the coupon itself it said these coupons are non-transferable. And you know, at first Continental Airlines was like, all right, we'll let you do that, it's fine. But then, you know, later on they're like, no, we don't want you to do that anymore, stop. And then,
Stop.
so I guess they,
Make me.
sure what happens, make them.
Yeah, exactly.
And it turns out you can make them, because even though you waived at the beginning and allowed them to do this, you still have control over your own company. And
So what?
control over your company.
Ooh, I like that word in this case. Who else likes the word control? Is control enough to get an injunction?
Yep.
Absolutely. I mean, that's what this case stands for. Silly facts, but the right to control one's business, the right to that's something that actually is harm, right? I mean, it's not. Because, you know, if you're the middleman, what's your argument? What do you care? You're getting paid. What's your harm? What's happening to you? And they said, well, we don't want to do it.
But they're not getting paid. That's the thing, though, that because
Well, the analysis
they're no longer selling or they're no longer giving out those coupons, so they're not getting paid for that $100 off. So they're like, stop taking this $100 from us. And like, no.
I think the argument was that, you know, it was more likely that people would throw this coupon away, but since you're specifically giving it to people, you're making this money that people would have had to pay for price. But yeah.
Alright, so Continental
I can't believe
was
they even thought that.
Yeah, if you're making money on
entitled
selling
to
coupons.
control whether its coupons were transferred. The difficulty and probable expense of establishing the amount of economic harm supports the proposition that damage would be an inadequate remedy. And so cuts in favor of equitable relief. Read the last paragraph of the case, control it. Okay, you good? Okay. And now, if I'm not mistaken, Campbell Soup versus Wentz. Now, you know I like all cases about food. Not a single one I don't like. And I love this case. I actually went out and tried to find one of those cans.
You and CJ must get along well, though.
Did she do that too?
Because she just loves everything is about food with her.
Oh, I didn't know that. I'll have to compare those.
Oh yeah, no, everything is about food with
She
her.
used it as her, like, to break the ice, make an
Yeah.
analogy.
Oh, seriously?
Yeah.
That's cool. Oh, that's awesome.
The one rule in life for her is never turn down free food. So if you're invited anywhere,
She's so skinny and little. I wonder if, like, it's almost like Rings Hollow in some a little bit. You know what I mean?
but she's like, if you're ever invited
You never
anywhere with
turn
free
down
food,
free
you never turn it down.
Like, I don't know. There's a lot of chips over there. You never turn down free food? All right, so carrots. Campbell likes to use red ones, and they have a contract for red ones. These skyrocketed in price from $30 a ton to $90 a ton. Went did like a
Efficient breed.
an efficient breach, like a strategic breach, and Campbell wants specific performance, and the court's not going to give it to him.
Yeah, the court did it.
Did they?
Yeah.
Who didn't?
In the end, they did.
They did not.
We see no reason why a court should be reluctant to grant specific relief when it can be given without. Oh, no, never mind.
The last sentence, the court went on, it's in brackets. The court went on to deny specific performance on the ground that the contract was too unconscionable to enforce in equity. Yeah, so
Oh,
basically,
they would have given it.
they have a contract. These are pretty unique because they're like special when they're rare and they're scarce, but
Not scarce.
yeah, in the end, it's a carrot. I mean, I think that's kind of the problem.
No,
you know?
I think this one, they would have given it if it wasn't for the difference in the tonnage.
Sure.
Because they said
3 times.
the carrots are special enough to get specific performance given the climate,
Really?
but
Okay.
because of the unconscionability of the price difference, they couldn't enforce it in an equity court because it wasn't equitable to enforce it.
But they
Why-
said,
That's what I
why
got
was
out of
it
it, though.
equitable? No, you're right, it was not equitable, but why?
Because of the difference in how much they were paying and how much they were, or how much they were going to give for them and how much they were worth. That's what I got out of it. I mean,
well, I think it was like 2-1, like, it was, so the contract itself was the problem, right? Not just like carrots or money, because it would have been the same amount of money really handed over.
yeah, well, I don't know, but I just got it that carrots can be special enough. This here, there was unconscionable issues and therefore they didn't get them.
Well, let me ask you a question. This is a practical matter. They've already sold them, they're gone, they don't have any more. How do you get specific performance?
But they're not gone.
But what if they were?
Well, then
You get money. I mean,
That's, you have to get money, right? So we have something in the middle, right? Where, it's interesting, but efficient breach is legal, right?
So they only get $30 per ton that they didn't deliver, and then they still probably
No, they-
pay 60.
they get the difference between what they contracted for and what they had to pay for it, and they get the difference because they have to be made whole.
So that's to pay 90, they'd have to pay out 60, they still
Yeah.
pay 30 a ton, so.
Yeah, I mean, the thing that I always take from this case is that the efficient breach is legal, don't you think?
yeah,
I mean,
but,
they
Efficient
can,
breach is legal, but
they
carrots
can-
can be special.
well,
but not special.
how special though? That's.
But these
that's
are
the
special.
part.
Because they said if they didn't get those
Well,
carrots, then they would have different kinds of carrots in their soup, and their soup would not be uniform. Because they would have some carrots that are orange all the way through, and then others that are orange on the outside and yellow on the inside, and
Does
that
Campbell's-
makes your soup look gross, even though Campbell's soup is already kind of gross.
Does Campbell's soup still use red carrots?
I would imagine so. I mean, their carrots are orange through and through, but I'm sure they're genetically modified now to be orange through and through.
That's fine.
Very nice.
Yeah, it's also very interesting because I had to go figure it out. But anyways, I started buying different cans of soup. And it is funny because there is one thing that's really weird. And now that I've said this, you're going to go and buy soup and figure it out for yourself. But what also Campbell's wanted, and this is kind of interesting, is the Chantays don't really have the eye inside.
Oh, yeah, that yellow,
Yeah.
that hard core at
So
the
it's
center.
just cubes. So when you see the Chantay, it's just kind of a reddish cube. When you see the other ones, it's got the eye and stuff like that. And it's like,
Yeah, with the circle cut carrots
yeah,
instead of
it
the
looks
cube.
funny when you see it.
That's what carrots.
I'm just telling you, it looked funny, and I was looking at the one can versus the other. I swear to you,
Yeah,
it
but people
would be-
don't
So
know.
Chante has the eye?
It does not.
No, it does not.
It's just all uniform, very small. You can't see it. Whereas the other ones, the orange carrots, it can be like yellowish. I'm telling you, I looked at the two, and they looked like
Do
they were
cross-section
raw. It looked like
of
they
it.
weren't cooked. It looks like they weren't ripe.
yeah.
I'm just saying. I looked at both and I said, you know what? I would eat the Chantay.
Yeah.
I wouldn't go for those. They looked like they got inferior carrots. It really did. Now, not everybody sits down with 2 bowls of carrots side by side.
To compare.
I admit, but I was kind of felt for
It's uniformity.
it. But on the other hand, efficient breach is efficient breach. I mean, it's not illegal to. Remember we talked about that earlier. It's not illegal to breach a contract. If you can sell them for more and still pay off the damages, isn't expectancy, isn't damages adequate, or is it not?
But so what
But
happens?
their expectation damages should have been enormous. They should be paying off all their soup. You know what I mean?
Well, what happens if there is no more
I
carrots?
want soup sales.
So you can't
No, I
get
want-
specific performance,
You can't.
but you also can't get
Yeah.
the difference between the 2 contract price because there is none left to buy. So
Yeah.
what are your damages?
Soup sales.
But 100
All my
tons.
suits.
But that's a contract. I mean, if you literally can't fulfill a contract,
I need to go to
they
bed.
can cover.
But you could have, but you efficiently breached, so what's your damages? Because you have nothing to measure by. You can't measure between contract price and sale price because you can't buy them anywhere. You can't get specific performance because you can't get them anymore from the guy. I mean, how do you measure damages?
But it's a buyer's remedy, right?
Right, it's
You want
Campbell.
buyer's remedy.
Because Campbell's the
You want
one.
seller's remedy. The seller is selling.
But what's the buyer's remedy? I mean, you can't get specific performance and you can't get the difference between
No.
contract price.
No, you can get the
I want all
difference between.
I want all
you
of that,
can-
the
You
faith
can
I
get,
lost.
if in fact, no, you can. You can, in a case like that, what they'll do is they'll take market price and they'll figure
Of
out.
what, carrots?
Yeah.
But I want
Take
all
market price and they'll minus you're gonna, well, but the thing is remember, they're going to buy carrots, right?
Yeah, but they're gonna buy inferior,
You
different
get the
kinds of
difference.
carrot.
Yeah.
But what's the difference though? Like, how do you
Whatever the
measure
price
that?
is. Well, whatever you, it's the price of, it's the, how to explain, I mean, I actually know what it is, hold on, I like food cases. It's actually, what you would get would be, you would take, so whatever the cover was, right?
So for the
Whatever you paid
inferior carrots?
For the inferior, so if you bought them for less, you would get the difference in, you would get the,
Well, the cover only works if they're equal. You have to go out and you have to cover yourself,
right,
and then you have, this is a UCC actually, but I'm sure it'll apply similarly to.
yeah,
So you have to go out, you have to cover,
Carrots
and you
are good.
sue for the difference. But my thing is that they're not the same anymore. So I want all the good faith that I've given my customers over this year that I can't get
Well,
anymore.
and that's
I
what
want huge damage.
That's what I mean. You can get
I
inferior
want
carrots.
billions of dollars in Campbell suits.
Oh,
but how do
you want goodwill.
I want
Yeah.
goodwill, I want everything.
But you can't get that in a contract.
I think that
Oh, yeah,
this is,
you can actually.
I think that this is,
I've actually written
Are they
down-
consequential? Or liquidated?
Well,
Or
I mean, I did trademark law, so you always tack on that, by the way, the goodwill inherent therein is blank. And yeah, if you do something, you.
well, then you contract it
That's
for
how
it.
you
Then
sell
it's
it.
a term of your
see, they
contract.
expect, my customers expect red carrots.
They're orange.
Whatever.
I'm not even into the red carrots.
But
Orange.
what is your measure of damages though? Because if you get an inferior carrot, do you get, so say you're buying
Let's see.
shit carrots for $25 a ton, do you get the the $5 per ton difference between the crap carrots that you bought and the good carrots you were supposed to buy?
Well, I think you would,
Or does the court pull a number out of thin air and say, well,
This
that's what
settles
I
in
need?
real life, right?
It just
I mean,
sounds very speculative. If specific performance isn't available
let's see.
and there's
I wrote
no,
it down for you, didn't I? Pay damages plus profit if the goods are covered, that goods available elsewhere.
but I'm saying, what if the goods aren't available elsewhere?
Oh, they're not at all.
So,
And
you can't
that's
get,
different.
you can't get specific performance because they don't have them anymore. You also can't get the goods elsewhere because there's no market left for them, like in here where they said there's just none left. So
Right.
how do you figure out what to pay them? Because normally the difference would be between the contracted price and the new purchase price, but you don't have that if there's none available on the market.
Right. I mean, if they're not available, they're not available. That's the
Is that-
thing, right?
So is that like in one of these notes where it said they would basically put a case of it up for auction and say, okay, well, that's how much they would go for if they could get it at that price, and so then we'll just give you that difference?
They could do that. Yeah.
So you're not actually gonna get it and you're not actually gonna buy them, but this is what it would
Yeah.
cost you,
Yes.
and so you get the difference and you're
Yeah.
just gonna get crap products,
Well,
basically,
you have to.
because you have to?
Uh-huh.
Okay.
Yeah, you have to.
Because I was just trying to find that
Yeah.
measuring number for them to say, okay, you owe the difference between
Yeah,
these
I mean,
two.
if there's none left, you can't have the junkers. There's junk. And there are these interesting cases though where they do try to force the third party buyers to sell them too, but they can't do that. Because they're gone, it's probably, but they're gone, so you can't do that either. Okay. But this is your hit, yeah, you know, keep this, this is your little hit list right here, B, C, and D. Those are your options in a case like this, and depending on what's available,
Okay.
who, what, when, where, why, and how.
I just like how the book gives us Duval, and then they're like, Duval's actually like the minority case that nobody relies upon, so don't even remember it, even though we just make you read it.
No, this is.
I'm just like, why make us read about it if you're just going to tell us that it's useless?
Because it shows the way a court might be moving, buddy.
The funny part is, you know, the court first, they grant specific performance based on these facts. But
Yeah.
then they say, however,
However, nobody follows this case, and it was actually like,
what did you read the last line of?
Yeah.
The court went on to deny specific performance on the ground that the contract was too unconscionable to be enforced in equity.
yeah, so it's no different
Now, wow.
than Campbell.
Yeah.
Or are you talking about Campbell?
Yes, that's what
Oh,
that's Campbell.
Yeah,
They actually do that. They actually say, yeah, you should be able to get it. However,
you were unconscionable when you created the contract.
right, you knew this one.
Yes.
So it is curiosity.
So character special, but you have to be equitable when you make a contract,
Yeah.
or you don't get your carrots in your suit. Sucks. Actually, that's kind of why they use both kinds of suit
I
carrots now.
actually would have seen that the exact opposite way. If it's so important to you that you create this crazy contract, right, with all these like liquidated damages and whatever.
Actually, in your situation, it's note 2. That's the actual computation.
Note 2?
And then note 2 is when there's nothing left. They're all gone. They're actually, I said, I knew there was a computation. That's the computation.
I read the note, but does it? Yeah, without any.
You get the right to specific performances expectation damages if you can't get it. Contract market damages would be 60 per ton. Specific performance would give Campbell $90. Carrots for $30.
But do they only come up with the $90 because that's what they were purchasing from that other supplier on?
Well, that would be, you'd have to come up with a number that the market price would be. And so that would be a market price.
So then there'd be no reason for this to have
Easiest way to
breach.
do that.
Because then, okay, so say, okay, he goes and sells it for $90 a ton. And then, you know, well, Campbell's goes and buys it for $90 a ton, and he still has to fork over that $60 extra dollars he made over, so he ends up making what he would have made anyway. So it's $30 million.
Yeah, basically.
So then it's kind of pointless. It's
It's
just,
not really all that efficient.
yeah,
They probably figure, oh, we're going to settle, so then it'll become more
it'll be
efficient.
less. We
I
just,
think that was more or less in the lines. Yeah.
And
So
that
that's kind
didn't
of a
sell.
wash, isn't it?
And then it went to the
so they're probably just gonna sell us for less than their $60.
at least court of appeal. And they're like, this costs them a lot more money than we thought.
Well,
Not so efficient anymore.
This would be the first case I've ever heard of where the seller out efficient.
Actually, I guess it would be an efficient breach though, because they didn't uphold it in the court of equity, so
Uphold it.
I guess it was efficient in the end, but
Yeah, I was gonna say, but in the end, they made,
Maybe you got the
Campbell's probably
yeah,
like,
they made $30. So that's, I mean,
Well, $30 is what they were gonna make anyway. Right? So,
well, no,
well, no, they didn't make $30. They ended up being able to sell them for the 90 because the court didn't enforce the contract. But it would not have been all that equitable.
They made out like little banditos.
Yeah.
So they knew what they were doing.
Oh yeah.
Okay,
Same with billboards.
just remember.
No.
I love cases about,
Billboards are not unique.
remember that.
Yeah. I know, they're not unique.
Oh, yeah, no. Well, no. It's because it was for a lease, right? That was the billboard case. It kind of just fell on because it was a lease and not the actual building that they were buying, and you can't enforce specific performance of a.
Well, they're making the argument that certain billboards are more attractive areas than others, and so they are unique, and they're not.
Yeah.
So that's the bottom line of that case. It's funny because I saw that case pop up not too long ago, and Very similar case. Yeah.
I looked up the
And no, you're not.
They're kind of like, yeah, that's no.
I looked up the video. That's a massive billboard.
That's like one of the big ones. Yeah.
Like, because they give you the link to the video so you can see it as it's coming out in Note 4.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh.
and it's like this 150-foot billboard
Oh, wow, where?
No way, really?
as you come out of the Midtown Tunnel.
Really?
Yeah,
Oh, it is like special.
and it's on YouTube, and it's like
Surprised.
Really?
it is this massive billboard as soon as you come out of that tunnel.
Oh, so cool.
So it's definitely like a sign of a case. Like if this one isn't,
Oh yeah, that
Then-
makes me excited. I've seen it.
then none of them are. I mean,
Wow. I gotta go with that. I haven't seen that.
It's like a super sped up video of a car coming out of the tunnel, and you just see it for like 0.2 seconds.
what's this? What is it?
Or 4. Basically a YouTube video.
Alright. James.
Yeah.
Alrighty. Wow. Okay, I'm gonna check that out. Curiosity. Cool. Alright, we good? Alright, let's call it then. Let everyone go home before they
202.
branch. I'm taking those puppies home. Yes, I have newfound respect for CJ. I already respected her, but now I even know her.
My wife's here to take some.
Yeah, please, you can have it. You
Dude,
guys can do what you wish with it. I'm gonna take it. So I figured out a really good way not to leave my coat here for the longest time. But I keep taking off, putting my back chairs and leaving.
Keep it on?
I left it at home.
No.
Yes. Wasn't that cold today. Rather than.
Okay, here it's coming out.
Oh.
You want to see it? Oh,
It is a massive billboard.
that's a pretty
Pretty
important spot.
interesting.
It's a pretty like you see it right there as it comes out.
Yeah, it's a lot of traffic goes through that.
Yeah. If a billboard were going to be unique, that would be a good.
But I don't think it was. I think what the case said was that the post office actually ended up buying that building, and that they're the ones who wanted to demolish it and put a post office there. So now that billboard, it's a post office billboard. Like it's for the post office. So they didn't.
They don't put like the post office isn't renting it out.
No, it's. I think I'm pretty sure it's for the post office.
I don't think you guys would. They still rent it out.
I think they should. Post office would make money. I mean, the post office isn't about making money.
That is clear.
Yeah, I'd say that one for fun. Okay, guys, thanks. We're moving forward.
Did Victor ever send us that stuff from PNBR?
Who?
Victor?
PNBR.
You remember that? What's her name gave us the last wills and trust class? It was that PNBR book on how to do multi-states that she said to.
I don't recall that. Yeah, I mean, I recall her talking about it and saying that we're gonna do this. And like, I'm gonna try to get John on board and everything. And I don't remember it going anywhere.
Remember she gave us the old book from when we did. Yeah.
Yes, sir.
What is it?
Yeah.